Chapter 773. Dazed, Huey looked at Dustless in astonishment. She didn't expect this guy to be so shameless and cunning, deliberately luring her into a trap and letting Dustless take advantage of the loophole. It's okay to stick to the rules, but you have to serve me well tonight. This is your responsibility. Dustless said with a cheeky smile close to Huey's ear. With a wretched smile and a wolfish light, Dustless has long been hungry. Without this third wheel, he would have already done Huey on the spot. The sky as the cover and the earth as the bed, this is the best. Huey snorted and simply chose to ignore the existence of Dustless. She elegantly ate the dishes as if nothing had happened. The blush on her perfect face couldn't be wiped away. Late at night, the bright moon hung high, and everything was quiet. Dustless sneaked into Huey's room. He thought he could indulge himself, but he didn't expect little Yushi to guard Huey like a knight, causing Dustless to feel stifled. The next morning, Dustless's eyes were dark, no different from a drug addict for many years. Father's physique is stronger than mother, why do you look so listless? Yushi's clear eyes narrowed into crescents as she asked curiously. Hearing this, Huey smiled. Her smile was as gentle as a spring breeze. Wiping Yushi's face with a wet towel, she revealed a faint smile. Although these trivial matters can be done by using servants, Huey, who loves Yushi too much, still chose to do it herself. Is father not feeling well, mother? Looking at Huey in puzzlement, Yushi felt that Huey's smile had a different meaning. Don't worry about him, he's just distressed. I'm afraid he was suffocated last night. Patting Yushi's head, Huey said with a smile. She was afraid that Dustless couldn't hear her, so she deliberately stretched her voice and looked very proud. So that's how it is, in order to guard against me, she deliberately pulled Yushi to sleep with her yesterday. The confusion in his eyes disappeared, Dustless instantly understood Huey's meaning. Okay, let's go eat breakfast. Her thin lips gently kissed Yushi's face. Huey's smile was beautiful. For this daughter of hers, she liked no one could let Yushi be wronged. Therefore, Yushi's arrogance increased. She was the only one in everything, exceptionally overbearing. Little Yushi nodded her head, then skipped happily and disappeared into the dark corridor. I didn't expect you to be so despicable. As if he couldn't stand the glare, Dustless closed the curtains, turned, and said to Huey, people like me, I hate to lose, there's no such an annoying word in the dictionary. Hearing this, Huey pursed her lips and smiled, her eyes filled with indescribable disdain. You're really stubborn. Unfortunately, you've already lost. This is an undeniable fact. No, you're wrong. Last night was only a temporary victory. There is still the second half of the finals. His TS is S to S to T. Hearing this unfamiliar term for the first time, Huey's face froze. She didn't understand what it meant. After a long silence, Huey no longer thought about it and changed the topic. Yushi is a good method to guard against wolves. Sleep with her in the future. Method to guard against wolves. Dustless's heart was rolling, and his old blood almost burst out uncontrollably. When did he become a wolf? After a moment of hesitation, Dustless stared at Huey. His eyes were filled with desire. It's okay to be a wolf. Anyway, I'm about to turn into a wolf. Since you know that Yushi is a method to guard against wolves, you shouldn't let her go. Dustless had a teasing smile on his face. I now announce the start of the second half of the competition. The moment his voice fell, Dustless disappeared without a trace. Only Huey was left in the room. Her eyes were a little dim, and her movements were stiff. She didn't realize what had happened. This jutsu, Huey's voice suddenly stopped. A strong and powerful arm hugged her from behind. She felt a hot man's breath, and her face was as red as a ripe apple. She finally understood the meaning of the second half of the competition. It's still daytime. Huey struggled hard and tried to push away Dustless's arm, but it didn't work. She, the god of creation of the ninja world, was not Dustless's opponent at all. So what if it's daytime? I just closed the curtains. Her pair of small hands became restless as she smiled and said, since you know that she is an effective method to guard against perverts, then you should not leave her. Now, not only did you leave her, you even provoked me even more. Family law. Wait. Huey's face was stunned. She didn't expect Dustless to be so shameless that he would do such a thing in the daytime. Are you dumbfounded? This is the result of offending me. Don't expect me to care about the so-called occasion, that's self-deceiving. When his voice fell, Dustless violently blocked Huey's thin lips. Because it was the living room, there was no sex, so Dustless could only wrongly hug Huey. With a body comparable to the Jubi, Dustless's energy was infinite. He just needed to stand, everything else was superfluous. Time flew, and unknowingly, 3 days had passed. In the dark mysterious space, there was a shrill mouse cry from time to time. The air was cold and filled with a fishy smell. Ace, long time no see, a mysterious voice resounded in the dark space. It spread out like ripples in water, spreading to every corner. Suddenly, a pair of bright eyes flashed in the depths of the dark space. It was none other than Fire Fist who had been imprisoned here. Chapter 774. 3 figures walked in the dark space, of which the figure on the left was the most conspicuous, wearing a white cloak and a beige striped coat, and his tall body was nearly 3 meters tall. Sengoku is really impatient. He has been fighting with Whitebeard all his life. He is an old friend. It's really cold to want Whitebeard's life so much. In the dark space, Dustless's voice came. Looking around, Dustless, Kizaru, and Akiji were all there. Today, Fire Fist Ace's wounds have healed, but his spirit is abnormally sluggish and decadent, and his temperament is terminally ill, like an old man in his twilight years. There is no other way. Whitebeard's blood must end the last era. They have become a thing of the past. Kizaru leisurely blew smoke rings and stared at Ace, who was locked by Seastone in front of him. His old eyes flashed with pity as the entire Whitebeard pirates may die because of him. It's surprisingly low. Several people walked to the side of the prison cell, and Akiji looked down at Ace sitting on the ground. At this moment, his head drooped and he was listless. His inner soul was deprived and he was just a walking corpse. If you knew this, why did you do it? Unfortunately, there is no regret medicine in this world, and it's useless to change. The remaining sympathy in his eyes turned into indifference, and Akiji opened the door of the cell himself. Dustless and others walked in front of Ace and looked at him with different expressions. His feelings are pitiful, but his crimes are unforgivable. 3 admirals came at once. I didn't expect a prisoner like me to be so valuable. Looking up and looking at the indifferent expressions of Dustless and others, Fire Fist Ace laughed at himself. Don't get me wrong, I'm just accompanying them to release you from prison. Of course, I'm not letting you go free, but escorting you to a more airtight place. Impel down, Dustless said. Kizaru stepped forward, pinched out the cigarette in his hand, put his hands in his trouser pockets, and said in a lazy tone, "Don't look down on yourself so much. You are an important person in the Whitebeard pirates. Mariewa is not far from Impel Down. The possibility of Whitebeard ambushing you halfway is very high." Hearing this, Fire Fist Ace's expression became more gloomy, but Kizaru didn't care and continued, "So, Fleet Admiral sent me in Kazan. After all, the opponent is the Whitebeard pirates. They are all terrible hunters. If we are careless, we may capsize." But, then Kizaru's tone suddenly changed, and his face that was as rough as dead bark sneered. Often the position of the hunter and the prey changes rapidly, and the hunter suddenly becomes the prey from time to time. You plan to imprison me and impel down. Hearing that he was going to be locked and impelled down, Ace's lifeless eyes glowed with a strong light, and his face was filled with unconcealable joy. Don't get me wrong, Wu Chen said. His expression was frozen, exactly like a dead person. I transferred you to impel down in the hope that you can have a better environment. At the very least, I want you to be white and plump, so that you won't look like a human or a ghost like this. Ruthlessly stepping Fire Fist Ace into the 18th layer of hell, Dustless's mouth squirmed, and there was no sign of peace. He continued to indifferently attack. You must be alive and kicking. A stinky fish that is about to die of disease can't attract the ferocious Sea King. It seems that we still have to execute him together. Fire Fist Ace's face was ashen when he heard this, and his eyes suddenly turned black. He felt that his future was dark and desperate, and the whole world had ruthlessly abandoned him. Marine's plan to publicly execute him has not changed, and they still intend to use him to attract the Whitebeard pirates. This is natural, you are such a perfect bait, Sengoku will certainly not let you go in vain. Pirate King Roger's son, Whitebeard's adopted son, it's a pity not to use you. Dustless said. Ace's face changed greatly, and a blood-red light appeared in his eyes, like a cat whose tail was stepped on. He roared like crazy, my father has only one person from beginning to end, Whitebeard. Ignorant, it is because you are Whitebeard's son that we use you at all costs. Kizaru sneered. Snap. Dustless suddenly snapped his fingers, and several black-clothed men came out from behind him, holding a rich dinner in their hands, and the fragrance made people's mouths twitch. Compared to Sengoku, I am a lot kinder. I have prepared a last dinner for you. In a dark place like Impel Down, it is impossible to get this kind of treatment. Dustless said with a generous face. However, Fire Fist Ace was just full of disdain and did not appreciate it. Last dinner. I feel like this is hush money. Fire Fist Ace suddenly said in a baffling manner. His entire face was filled with a sneer. Hush money. Kizaru and Akiji looked at each other and looked at Fire Fist Ace with a puzzled expression. They didn't know what he meant by those words. The last dinner is obviously just to shut me up, afraid that I will retaliate against you after I go to heaven. Dustless looked at Fire Fist Ace contemptuously, and his words were full of ridicule. You sinful people can't go to heaven, you can only go to hell, and you can't become an angel, you can only become a ghost. Looking down at Fire Fist Ace, Dustless's eyes were full of contempt. If you think you can go to heaven and retaliate against me by becoming a ghost, you can try, I should be looking forward to it. Chapter 775. Dustless looked at Ace with a funny look. This guy even wants to go to heaven. Especially listening to his tone, it seems that even in the world after death, he won't easily bypass the marine. How naive are you, Fire Fist? Kizaru's lazy voice sounded. He always felt that Kizaru was mentally abnormal. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to say such crazy words. The Whitebeard pirates are all sinful people. The stronger they are, the more blood debt they bear. If such a person can go to heaven, Kizaru feels that he can be an angel. Untie him. Akiji ordered silently. Fire Fist Ace was tied up with thick chains that were even thicker than a human's leg. Are you guys trying to use me to lure Dad? Ace said in despair, his eyes ashen. You've asked this question before. Frowning, Dustless always felt that Fire Fist Ace's words had a different meaning, but since you asked, seeing that you are about to step into the underworld, this is indeed a trap to attract the Whitebeard pirate. No, it's not just to attract Whitebeard. At this moment, Dustless's voice spread out, brushing every inch of the dark space. This public execution of the people who participated in saving you, I'm afraid that they will be affected. Dustless said with a cold smile. Huh? He wanted to see Ace's firm will to be defeated. Akiji looked at the two helplessly. The abilities of the devil fruit are not only surprisingly similar, but sometimes in terms of character, they also like to attack others. This is your last dinner, enjoy it. Akiji's heart was as calm as water as he looked down at Fire Fist Ace. Although his experience was worthy of sympathy, he couldn't absolve Fire Fist Ace of his guilt. In the eyes of the Marine, pirates are not worthy of sympathy. Dustless's assistant placed the steaming hot plate in front of Fire Fist Ace and then silently retreated. Open his sea stone handcuffs. Staring at Fire Fist Ace with sea stone in his hands, Akiji ordered. Akiji didn't care about this. Dustless, Kizaru, and him were three admirals. Fire Fist Ace couldn't escape. If he wanted to resist, he would be cruelly suppressed. It wouldn't have any effect. Instead, it would increase unnecessary injuries. Dustless and Kizaru both remained silent, as if nothing had happened. Fire Fist Ace was not worthy of their attention. Crack! The heavy sea stone handcuffs fell to the ground in the corner. Fire Fist Ace stood up and moved his stiff body. He stared at the knife beside the plate, and a strange luster flashed in his eyes. If you want to escape, forget it. You can't deal with three admirals at the same time. Dustless said as he keenly captured the luster in Ace's eyes. Come with us, I hope we don't have to do it ourselves. Kizaru said. At least wait until I eat something to replenish my strength. If I'm hungry, you Marines will be in trouble. Fire Fist Ace revealed a bold and carefree smile. Then, he began to wolf down the fragrant feast with both hands. Like a reincarnated hungry ghost, he finished the dazzling array of food in one gulp in a short period of time. Bring it to me. At this moment, a loud roar resounded through the darkness. Then he rushed to the side of the previous assistant and easily dodged the knife in the other's hand. Immediately, he flashed back for a distance, guarding against Dustless and others. I knew this would happen. It's impossible to make this kid give up. Kizaru sighed and looked as usual. He wasn't surprised. On the contrary, all this was expected. Kizaru didn't expect Fire Fist Ace to go to impel down with them. Are you going to use this broken blade to deal with us? Dustless leaned back against the iron fence. The long knife in Ace's hand was easy to deal with ordinary humans, but against a Marine admiral, it would be broken in an instant. You're wrong. Don't say three, I'm not your opponent at present. Fire Fist Ace shook his head resolutely. Dustless and others, each of them is strong beyond the scope of human knowledge. It is impossible for him to defeat an admiral with his current strength. Is it? Staring thoughtfully at the knife in Fire Fist Ace's hand, Dustless and others looked at each other and understood his intentions. He didn't choose to fight, but another kind of relief. Kill yourself to thank them. Only with Fire Fist Ace's death would Whitebeard be able to realize that everything would be salvaged. Why do you always have this ridiculous fantasy? It only makes you more powerless, Ace. Do you think suicide can solve everything? Dream on. Dustless sneered. Akiji and Kizaru frowned. Although they were very close to Fire Fist Ace, they were half a beat late. This kid may really succeed in committing suicide. Don't forget, your life and death have nothing to do with me when you get out of here, but now you are still in Mariewa. If I let you die, you can die. If I let you live, you must live. As a prisoner, you have no choice. Chapter 776. Don't forget, your life and death has nothing to do with me when you get out of here, but now you are still in Mariewa. If I let you die, you can die. If I let you live, you must live. You have no choice as a prisoner. The sonorous and powerful voice fell into everyone's ears. Akiji and Kizaru were stunned, their eyes were a little dazed, and their eyebrows were slightly raised, and their eyes were full of disapproval and doubt. Such a short distance is not enough to stop Fire Fist Ace. If he is determined to commit suicide, Akiji and Kizaru can only stand and watch. Even with Kizaru's speed, he can't do it. He can arrive in front of Fire Fist Ace in an instant, but he can't stop him. Do you really think I don't dare? Fire Fist Ace's eyes flashed with anger. It is the nature of pirates to be straightforward. They will never hide their feelings. Therefore, most pirates are reckless. Although Fire Fist Ace has some wisdom, his pirate nature has never changed, and it has been deeply ingrained in his bones. You little brat. Your brain doesn't seem to work well, your reaction is unexpectedly slow. Dustless still stood on the ground, his eyes always remained calm, and his temperament was elegant and calm. I told you before that this is Mariewa. I don't mind if you die, but without my approval, if you die, where will I put my face? You can die, but you must leave Mariewa, for example, die on their ship. Dustless pointed to Akiji and Kizaru, with an expression that had nothing to do with him, and said softly, in short, I don't care where you die, but I promised Sengoku that I would never let you die in Mariewa. Hearing this, Akiji and Kizaru looked at each other and could catch the speechlessness in each other's eyes. What does he mean by dying on our ship? This is too irresponsible. Stupid. Dustless's eyes were full of pity. He said contemptuously, even if you really die here now, the government will not let Whitebeard go casually. This is not an accident, but an inevitability caused by various reasons. Don't be naive. Marine's battle power has expanded at an unprecedented rate, while the Whitebeard pirates are slowly weakening, and because of Whitebeard's problem, the entire pirates are at a dead end. At present, there is no one in the Whitebeard pirates who can replace the former Whitebeard. Attacking the Whitebeard pirates is something that cannot be changed. Shut up, you bastard. Musket. Flames shot out from his fingers, like bullets fired from a machine gun. They engulfed Dustless in an instant, but did not harm his body. The current Fire Fist Ace was abnormally strong in the eyes of the world, but in front of Dustless, this cheat, he was abnormally weak. Without even looking at Fire Fist Ace, Dustless's body simply glowed, and he easily dodged the incoming bullets. Elemental transformation was completely immune to these ordinary physical attacks. Are you angry? Yes, the Whitebeard pirates are about to die, and I can only watch. No, it may even be the fuse that destroys the Whitebeard pirates. If it was me, I would hate myself for being incompetent. Dustless said with a look of understanding. Goodbye, Oyaji. Looking at the sharp tachi in his hand, Ace's face flashed a decisive color, and he cut straight towards his neck. It looked like he wanted to separate his own body. His method was extremely bloody and violent. He was extremely bloodthirsty to the enemy, and even more ruthless to himself. He thought that he could completely disappear from life and death, but a sudden change occurred. Idiot, I said that you can only die if I want you to. His pupils twisted rapidly, sending out amazing eye power fluctuations. Dustless disappeared for a while. In the dark space, his whole person disappeared out of thin air, as if he had never appeared, and peace was restored again. Fire Fist Ace suddenly opened his eyes and shot a strange light. Just now, it seemed that there was an inexplicable distortion that swallowed the tachi in his hand. Impossible. It's really gone. Looking at his empty right arm, Fire Fist Ace's face was filled with shock. A figure still descended from the sky. His dark black hair was messy, and his eyes had remained cold and indifferent from the beginning. There was no doubt that it was Dustless. Boom. Caw caw caw. Dustless's calf that contained a powerful force was close to Ace's right shoulder, and the unexpected huge force made Ace's expression change greatly. He wanted to struggle to avoid, but he was suppressed by the iron blood, and was easily stepped into the ground by Dustless. The ground couldn't withstand this powerful force and burst open. Are you awake now, Fire Fist? Dustless looked down at the sluggish Fire Fist Ace and asked, as if he had done something insignificant. His voice was light and full of magnetism. A small character like Fire Fist Ace was not worthy of being surprised. How did you get here? Fire Fist Ace roared in disbelief. Putting aside the fact that the tachi in his hand had disappeared, Dustless had also inexplicably descended from the sky and easily subdued Fire Fist Ace, who was completely unaware of it. This is called space ninjutsu. Dustless glanced at Fire Fist Ace and said bluntly, the name of this jutsu is Heavenly Hand Force. Within a certain distance, you can change your position with an object. Just now, I swapped the tachi in your hand. Pointing at the tachi in Fire Fist Ace's hand, it appeared where Dustless was standing just now. Chapter 777. The strangeness of ninjutsu is beyond imagination, including all things. Fire Fist Ace, including Kizaru and Akiji, looked at Dustless, who suddenly appeared with a stunned face. Coming and going without a trace, it is impossible to detect. The so-called observation hockey does not work at all. I just used observation hockey, but I didn't realize his existence. Akiji frowned slightly. After Dustless's body disappeared, he began to use observation hockey to perceive the movements around him, but Dustless was like a ghost without a body, completely shielding the perception of observation hockey. Space ninjutsu. Kizaru heard the words and immediately guessed the meaning of the words. Maybe it's the ability to move through space, and only in this way can he avoid the perception of observation hockey. Akiji heard this and nodded. Only space movement can avoid the perception of observation hockey. Apart from that, there are no other tricks known at present. Picking up the chain and the sea stone handcuffs on the ground again, Akiji found Fire Fist Ace again and looked at the decadent Ace. His eyes flashed with indifference. Since you are so insensible, I can only put the chain on you again. After that, Akiji skillfully tied Fire Fist Ace and locked him up again like a dumpling, and his hands were once again put on the sea stone handcuffs. He hoped that this kid would be sensible. Who would have thought that he would not change his nature? The road was his own choice, and he had to pay the price for it. Fire Fist Ace looked at the chains all over his body, and his face was ashen, especially the sea stone handcuffs on his hands, which were as terrifying as a secret black hole in the universe, swallowing all his strength. Not to mention using the power of the devil fruit again, the strength of his whole body seemed to be swallowed up and annihilated, revealing the powerlessness deep into his bone marrow. Let's go. You two sent Fire Fist to impel down. I can't leave, so I won't accompany you. Stretching out, Dustless had an expression of, I'm busy and have no time. Akiji and Kizaru looked at each other and could see the envy in each other's eyes. Dustless is the first Marine Admiral in history. Almost any task is done casually, and whether to do it or not depends on his mood. On the shore of Mariewa Port, Dustless sent Akiji and Kizaru here. Fire Fist Ace, whose body was bound by all kinds of iron chains, followed closely behind. His expression was dispirited and powerless, and his eyes were blank. He was full of uncertainty about the future. The blood flowing in his body had been sucked out, and he was as thin as a matchstick, leaving only skin and bones. However, people in their 20s were more like candles in the wind. Their entire bodies were filled with indescribable dispiritedness and listlessness. They had lost the motivation to live on, and they were no different from zombies. To the current Fire Fist Ace, living was more painful and terrifying than death. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have done it in the first place. I would have taken a step forward and taken back my words. Dustless let out a long sigh. He stared into Ace's eyes and could clearly see regret. But what could he do? You have to pay the price for everything you do. There is no path of regret. When will Sengoku execute Fire Fist? Dustless Akiji and Kizaru, who were chatting with Akiji and Kizaru, interrupted and asked. Akiji's eyes flashed with hesitation, and then he recalled the current situation of the Marine headquarters. He couldn't help but shake his head. At least, they can't execute Fire Fist Ace now. Everything is not ready yet, and it will take a lot of time to perfect the defense of the Marine headquarters. The other party is one of the Yonko, 4 emperors, Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world. Arrogance will only lead to self-destruction. Akiji's face was dignified. And Whitebeard has a lot of wings, and there must be a lot of pirates helping him in the new world. The place of execution is the location of the Marine headquarters, Marin. The underground defense mechanisms will be replaced during this period, and the residents of Marin will be evacuated. Kizaru took a puff of smoke, and his eyes were shining. This time the fleet admiral is going all out, and he intends to completely annihilate the Whitebeard pirates. Sengoku will definitely not let go of a dying tiger. It has been his dream for many years to annihilate the Whitebeard pirates. Dustless heard this and nodded without a trace. Judging from the current situation, it is indeed not suitable to execute Ace. Marine's preparation has not been fully done. Now Marines from all over the world have not been summoned, and the Shichibukai are also on their own. Speaking of which, Blackbeard's whereabouts have been very strange recently. Akiji changed the thread of discussion and suddenly went straight down, with a little fear vaguely. Sengoku ordered Akiji to secretly observe Blackbeard's every move, and no sign of him could escape Akiji's eyes. Impel down. Dustless was stunned when he heard the words, and then he asked tentatively. Looking at Dustless in surprise, Akiji gently nodded and said, he is indeed paying attention to impel down. His purpose is unknown. Among the Shichibukai, only his whereabouts are the most strange. Dustless smiled mysteriously and then walked leisurely into Mariewa. Blackbeard. His strength is rising now, and his courage is also getting bigger and bigger. It seems that he can't wait to attack Impel Down. Dustless walked straight ahead with a sneer on the corner of his mouth. About 10 years ago, he had tamed Shiryu of the Rain. This time, he just let him lurk in the Blackbeard pirates. Chapter 778. The ultimate purpose of Blackbeard Titch joining the 7 warlords of the sea is to participate in the War of the Best and find the right opportunity to seize Whitebeard's Tremor Fruit ability. There is also an unknown purpose, to win over the fugitives in the deepest part of Impel Down as partners. There is no doubt that the prisoners in Impel Down are the strongest, and most of them are extremely hostile to the Marine. They are trustworthy, and it is understandable that Titch is envious of the prisoners in Impel Down. Troubled times. I thought I could be as idle as an admiral, but I didn't expect him to be even busier. Damn God, it's really unfair. Royce South must be God's illegitimate child. Staring at the gradually disappearing back of Dustless, Akiji complained discontentedly. His personality was lazy to begin with. Recently, he was so busy that he was swamped with work. Compared to Wu Qin, this kind of leisurely general, it was not an ordinary kind of hardship. It is very likely that all the good things in the world fall on him. Kizaru threw away the cigarette in his hand and nodded. The two had a chat, and immediately the battleship drew a huge ripple on the surface of the water and began its journey to Impel Down. There are a large number of marine battleships around, and some of them are powerful vice admirals. Fire Fist Ace is not an ordinary person. It will take a few days on the way, and the possibility of encountering an ambush by the Whitebeard pirates is very high. After sending Fire Fist Ace away, Dustless returned to his villa. Before his but was warm, the Den Mushi that Dustless and Caesar often contact rang. This guy is never looking for me for a good thing. Dustless took the Den Mushi. Caesar looking for him has always been a bad thing. There is a problem with the construction process of Pluton. Before Dustless could ask, Caesar's anxious voice sounded, and his tone was mixed with resentment. There is a huge contrast between the design before and after, and various data is not right, and a lot of information is missing. Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly, and his eyes flashed with doubt. The design originates from Doflamingo. If there's anything you don't understand, ask him. Dustless couldn't help but want to slap himself. Doflamingo definitely couldn't understand the design of the Pluto King. Otherwise, he could have built it himself. Doflamingo. He doesn't know shit. At the mention of Doflamingo, Caesar's tone was full of disdain and disdain. He roared angrily, "I asked him, but that kid obviously evaded the question. He actually dared to say that my level is not high enough and that I can't understand the intricacies of the Netherworld King. That bastard, he." For an hour, Caesar was cursing Doflamingo. Because of Dustless' protection, he was not afraid of Doflamingo, so he was merciless with his words. A poisonous mouth scolding was particularly refreshing. Even Wu Qin was stupefied when he heard it. "Enough, tell me what the real reason is," Wu Qin said impatiently. His voice was extremely majestic and could not be provoked. Caesar's cold sweat was falling uncontrollably like raindrops on the other side of the den mushi. The squirming corners of his mouth stopped, and the mouth that was about to curse Doflamingo stopped. After many years, Caesar also figured out Dustless's character. If someone recklessly angered him, their end would definitely be miserable. He can be abandoned by anyone, but he can't be abandoned by Dustless. This specific situation, hesitation flashed through Caesar's mind, and he immediately remembered the data that was getting more and more strange recently. Caesar said in a deep voice, "Doflamingo's Pluto design blueprint, to a certain extent, is more like half of it. It's only a part of the data." Caesar's face was pale as he told the truth. At the end of his words, a gloomy blue vein appeared on his forehead. As a scientist, Caesar advocates the pursuit of truth, and the most taboo is to be deceived by others. That kid must have done it on purpose, he must know the truth, Caesar said fiercely. Dustless was silent for a long time. He didn't care about the truth, he was more concerned about the final result. He calmly asked, "If the other part of the design is found, when can it be completed?" "At most 2 or 3 years. The key is that there is no perfect design." Caesar sighed helplessly. "You don't have to worry about this, just quietly build the ship for me. Maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, the Pluto King will come in handy." With a cold look on his face, Dustless hung up the den mushi. He gently closed his eyes. At first, he also felt that there was a problem with the Pluto design blueprint. After all, this kind of top-secret design blueprint couldn't be casually revealed to the world. It also didn't make sense for it to appear in Doflamingo's hands. Although he finally gave the design blueprint to Dustless and became Dustless's subordinate, Doflamingo's ambition had never changed. A person abandoned by the celestial dragons has guts. "I'll kill him after I squeeze out all his value," Dustless murmured after thinking for a while. Doflamingo is now a loyal dog, and his efficiency is surprisingly high. It's a pity to kill him, but it's not too late to kill him when he has no more value. Since that Pluto King's design is only a part of the data, then the remaining part should be in the hands of Frankie. Thinking of the Pluto King's design hidden in Frankie's body, Dustless's mouth curved into a cold smile. He picked up the other den mushi and began to communicate with Robin. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. According to Robin's ability, it would be a piece of cake for him to snatch the design from the hands of those hotheads. Chapter 779. It's not that Dustless underestimated the IQ of the Straw Hat Pirates. Some of their behaviors are really not complimentary. Even if they can sometimes make the impossible possible, Dustless still thinks that they are stupid. As Akiji said, being aggressive is a good thing and worthy of praise, but simple hot-bloodedness can never make up for the huge gap between strength. If it wasn't for Dustless, the Straw Hat Pirates might have died a long time ago. Therefore, it wasn't difficult for Robin to take back Pluton's blueprint from Frankie. Hancock handed Robin's Den Mushy to Dustless and immediately stood beside him respectfully. It only took a few minutes for Dustless to tell Robin the original story and told her to be careful with the CP9. Robin's strength is much stronger than the original story, this is an undeniable fact, but there are countless examples of underestimating the enemy. Master, that Doflamingo is too annoying, we should send someone to kill him. After hanging up the Den Mushy, Hancock complained. Hearing the conversation between Dustless and the Den Mushy, she couldn't wait to grow wings and step on Doflamingo. In the beginning, she took in Doflamingo because of the design of Pluto, but now it was only half of it. Hancock suddenly felt that Doflamingo was very annoying. Using despicable to describe Doflamingo is an insult to the word shameless. Dustless saw this and just smiled and shook his head slowly, denying Hancock's idea. He smiled softly and said, "In my original hometown, there is a saying that haste makes waste. Killing him is also a matter of the future, there are still some things that need him to do. But after following me for so many years, Doflamingo seems to be a lot more confident. After more than 10 years of life, the strength of the Doflamingo pirates has rapidly improved in all aspects. The strength of the crew, including the power of his pirates, and the entire dark world is like thunder to Doflamingo. Now it seems that Doflamingo is a bit arrogant. Perhaps today's glory made him forget the gloomy past. Without Dustless, he would still be a stray dog. As the saying goes, a Daoist should never forget his roots, or else, he would be asking for trouble. However, there were very few people who could follow this saying. Especially in this world where pirates ran rampant and human ethics were distorted, being ungrateful was a trend. Taking a sip of tea comfortably, Wu Chen leaned on the sofa lazily. His eyes narrowed into a slit. His smiling eyes could see through everything. His eyes were focused on Hancock and didn't move. A panoramic view of the peerless body that was concave and curvaceous. The gaze that was full of invasiveness ignored the existence of the clothes. The dustless eye sockets reflected the delicate body that was like white jade. Dustless thought of the empty house. He reached out and pulled Hancock over. Hancock fell into Dustless's arms. "Master, it's still daytime." Hancock's face was red, showing a sickly blush. Dustless's heart was gradually stirred up by the fatal body fragrance. So what if it's daytime, anyway, no one is looking? Chakra surged in the palm of his hand, and he was about to shatter her clothes. The ground suddenly throbbed, and Dustless stopped the work at hand. Immediately, the light bulb broke out of the ground and ruined Dustless's good thing. Waitsetsu stared at Dustless's face and couldn't help but feel numb. Then he glanced at Hancock, whose face was as red as an apple, and couldn't help but shiver. He suddenly understood that he was the one who ruined Dustless's good thing. Or I'll come back later. Shrinking his neck, Waitsetsu whispered. Dustless waved his hand and stared at Waitsetsu angrily. He said impatiently, "Give me a suitable reason, or you don't have to appear in front of me in this life." Waitsetsu's mouth kept twitching, and he cursed his bad luck. He immediately said, "The brand new Rumble fruit that was born after killing Enel has been found." After that, Waitsetsu put the sealed iron box in his hand in front of Dustless. "So fast," Dustless said with surprise. The anger in his eyes disappeared, and Dustless observed the iron box in front of him with interest. His hand overflowed with blazing heat, and the iron box melted in the blink of an eye, revealing the golden mysterious fruit. It was like a shining gold, and the first impression it gave was quite sacred. The strange apple-shaped devil fruit came into view in an instant. It was covered with lightning-like irregular marks. At first glance, it looked extremely extraordinary. The whole room seemed to be filled with lightning, and the skin tingling could be clearly felt. Kamui. A vortex splashed in the void, gradually enlarging, and a powerful suction force shot out of it. The rumble fruit on the crystal table was sucked into the different space by Dustless. As for the candidate for rumble fruit, Dustless bowed his head and secretly pondered about the suitable candidate. Tsunade and Kagaya ate tremor fruit and light fruit respectively. Both of these fruits were obtained from the system's lottery. Now there is no suitable candidate for rumble fruit. The first ideal candidate is Otsutsuki Haruo, but she doesn't seem to be interested in devil fruit, and the other women are the same. After hearing Kagaya and Tsunade say that devil fruit tastes disgusting, all of them were afraid to avoid it. Dustless was in a dilemma. He worked hard to get the devil fruit, but those women avoided it as if they were avoiding evil stars. Chapter 780. The rumble fruit could make the whole world go crazy, but those shallow women were indifferent and even despised it. Dustless couldn't help but feel dumbfounded. After thinking about it, Dustless didn't force them anymore. After eating the rumble fruit, their bodies will turn into lightning, which is equivalent to having a well-known weakness. Devil fruit users are afraid of seawater and sea stone. In short, there are gains and losses, and Dustless didn't mind it. There's also some unexpected news. Baiju looked at Dustless's eyes and said unnaturally. Raising his eyebrows slightly, Dustless stared at White Setsu, who wanted to say something, and sighed. Just say it. Is there a problem on Caesar's side? It's true. Doflamingo is like a wolf and a tiger. Building Pluton in front of him is somewhat lacking in consideration. Once Pluton is finished, he will definitely take advantage of the situation. White Zetsu said solemnly. Wuchen nodded noncommittally. Dressrosa is Doflamingo's informant. After Pluto is completed, maybe he will take advantage of the situation and try to seize Pluto, but let him be. After a while, Dustless signaled that there was no need to worry. The heart of Pluton hasn't been released yet, and even if it is finished later, it would be good to test its power on Doflamingo. Pluton needs a lot of manpower and a lot of technical personnel, and Doflamingo is poor in this regard. At the same time, on the other side, the Straw Hat Pirates also landed in Water 7. Inside the rotten warehouse, it was dark, and only a few figures could be seen in the weak sunlight. Hey! Are you kidding me? That woman, Nicole Robin, has appeared. We should take action immediately, not hide in this damned place. Brooke, one of the CP9 members, complained. After several years of lurking, he had enough of being ordered around, especially boring shipbuilding work. Admiral Akiji told us not to act rashly. The beautiful CP9 member Khalifa said. That woman is no longer the same as before. She's not as weak as she used to be. Even if she's not as strong as the general, she's probably not that far off. Even if we attack together, we might not be her match. Kaku leaned against the corner of the wall and suddenly said. His tone was full of emotion. In the past, they were insignificant ants that weren't even worth mentioning. Now, they had become top powerhouses that had surpassed them. It had to be said that the world was changing really fast. All the members lowered their heads when they heard this. They had mixed feelings, but it was hard to hide the bitterness in their hearts. That woman must have been taught by an expert. Perhaps because she was also a woman, Khalifa's intuition was exceptionally sharp. None of this is important. Lucci, who was resting silently in the corner, opened his eyes. Don't forget that our initial goal is only Pluton's blueprint. As for that woman, speaking of this, Lucci's calm face loosened, and his expression became a little gloomy. An insect had inexplicably become an existence that surpassed them. It would be strange if he didn't feel depressed. Not only that, but because of Nico and Robin's existence, their movements were restricted. Don't worry about that woman for the time being. The hesitation on his face turned into determination. Lucci's first choice for the mission was Pluton's blueprint. Although Akiji had ordered them to find a chance to arrest Nico Robin, that was only if there was a chance. Oh. I didn't expect that one day the mission would be terminated because of that woman. Kaku said loudly, full of resentment. A group of CP9 members, including Lucci, looked at him strangely. Kaku's tone of speech clearly showed the meaning of relief. It was more of a fear. The last time they met in secret, Akiji's face had obvious scars, and he said that the instigator was Nico Robin. Although there was suspicion of a sneak attack, not everyone can injure an admiral. At least, the CP9 can't do it. Only people who control armament hockey can attack a Logia user. However, who has the Pluto King's design? We have no clue at all. Caliphus sighed helplessly, her tone was full of disappointment. After several years of lurking, they still haven't figured out who has Pluton's blueprint. Observe Nico Robin secretly. He is the only person in the world who can interpret the poneglyph. Maybe he has some clues. As for the person who spies on her, Lucci looked at Blueno, his meaning was self-evident. He is a Dordor fruit user. His ability is strange, no different from space travel. The task of investigation is always given to him. No problem. Blueno promised. After several orders were issued in succession, the small meeting of the CP9 ended. Everyone seemed to have never appeared, and the dark environment was quiet again. Ah. It's easy to deal with rookies who don't know hockey. After a few seconds of silence, a mocking voice spread out. White Zetsu's doppelganger broke out of the ground and looked at the people who had disappeared. He did not hide the sarcasm on his face. It is because you are rookies that it is easy to use you. White Zetsu is always careful when dealing with those who know hockey. His Kanban Shoku, observation, perception is extremely powerful. Once his existence is captured, he can't escape death. Chapter 781. Baizetsu had once risked his life to spy on the 5 Elder Stars. In the end, he was discovered by the 5 Elder Stars. If it wasn't for Wu Chen's extensive and profound training techniques, which gave Baizetsu a powerful escape ability, he might have been killed more than 10 years ago. It's time to find Nico Robin. Remembering Dustless's instructions, White Zetsu's body once again dived into the ground. The stinky warehouse once again returned to its deathly silence. The only thing that remained was the incessant screeching of the rats, which filled the depressing abandoned warehouse with an oppressive atmosphere. Time flew by, and 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. Capable people do more work. Blueno, who was lurking in the dark, stared at several figures in front of him and sighed. It was the Straw Hat Pirates, and of course, his eyes were focused on Nico Robin. Seeing the Straw Hats gathered together, Blueno's eyes flashed with deep disappointment. Just as he was about to retreat, Robin unexpectedly walked away alone. Blueno frowned tightly, and a flash of doubt flashed through his eyes. He remembered Lucci's instructions and followed her. Strange. She's a newcomer, what is she doing in this place? About half an hour later, Blueno followed Robin and came to a strange open place. It was deserted, and it was a plain area. There was no place to hide. Blueno could only use his door fruit's ability to open a big hole in the air and carefully observe Robin's every move. He was inexplicably happy. Robin came to such a strange place. Obviously, she was meeting with a mysterious person. Caw caw caw, the ground throbbed, and White Zetsu broke out of the ground and appeared beside Robin. Seeing this scene, Blueno suddenly smiled. He thought that it would be another difficult lurking, but he didn't expect the opportunity to come so quickly. He opened his ears and listened to the conversation between the two. Soon, a guy named Frankie entered his ears. The dark depths of the prison were like hell on earth, and there was only despair here. Under the reflection of the dirty light, a shadow could be seen on the ground. This person had delicate features and was about 18 or 19 years old. His deep black eyes were wrinkled and bright, and his hair was messy like grass. Shilyu, long time no see. You're still the same. Dustless's lips curled into a faint smile as he looked down at the bound figure in the darkness. It was as if he was meeting an old acquaintance. Clang, 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 the rumbling sound of the iron chains rolling rang out. The big man who was bound by the iron chains opened his eyes, revealing a biting cold gaze. He had a cigar in his mouth, and his eyes flashed with a strange light. His appearance is actually the same as it was more than 10 years ago. What a monster! Shilyu of the Rain's pupils dilated. He tried his best to conceal his shocked tone as he said in disbelief. Soon after, his expression turned ice-cold. His tone was filled with hostility and killing intent as he sneered, "Watch your tone. I'm not familiar with you. I can go back on my word at any time." Dustless smiled when he heard this, treating Shilyu of the Rain's words as wind that went in one ear and out the other. The distance between Mariehua and Impel Down is not far, especially the speed of the ship is extremely slow, compared with the speed of Dustless's flight, so Akiji and Kazara wasted time on the road. Blackbeard will soon pull you in. You are responsible for reporting his every move to me. His eyes were like torches staring at Shilyu of the Rain leaning against the corner of the wall, and his serious tone was irresistible. Hearing the absolute oppression in Dustless's tone and the unquestionable tone, Shilyu of the Rain's expression became colder, and his face exuded a piercing frost. What if I say no? Looking into Dustless's eyes, Shilyu of the Rain refused to back down. No. Those who dare to refuse my conditions, those who can live are also useful people. If you refuse me, you will be different from those who are alive, and you will die. Dustless's mouth exhaled cold air, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. Immediately, his body became strangely transparent. Ignoring the existence of the iron bars of the prison, he walked leisurely close to Shilyu of the Rain, looking down at him with a ferocious look. This is not a threat, but an order. If you disobey me, you will die. His body erupted with a sharply oppressive aura, and the whole person was not angry, and his eyes did not have human emotions, as calm as looking at insects. I have no problem joining the Blackbeard pirates, but I have conditions. After thinking about it, Shilyu of the Rain chose to compromise, and it was better to go out than to stay in this ghost place. Conditions. As if he had heard the funniest joke in the world, Dustless's face was sneering. You can make conditions, but I will never agree. People who can talk to me about conditions are at least Yonko, for emperors, or admiral level, and the other party is also Shichibukai. Looking down at Shilyu of the Rain, Dustless's tone became more and more indifferent. Now you are just a prisoner. You should be grateful to let you go out. You want to talk about conditions. Daydreaming. Shilyu of the Rain's face changed greatly when he heard the words, and his eyes flashed with blood. He stared at Dustless with his eyes, and he wanted to tear him apart. The dense iron chains behind him were the chains that restrained him. He could only look at Dustless, who was close at hand, and he was particularly weak and fragile. Chapter 782. In the final analysis, it was fine to talk about conditions, but he had to show his strength. Otherwise, there was no need to talk about anything. Especially Shilyu of the Rain was just a prisoner now. It was a miracle for him to condescend to look for him. I can only talk about conditions with you when I have the same strength as you. Shilyu of the Rain's face was pale. The strong had dignity in face. Now that he was provoked by Dustless, Shilyu of the Rain's inner feelings were self-evident. The silent flame was unstoppable like a flash flood. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the killing intent as sharp as a knife broke out of his body and turned into a sword blade storm that stabbed towards Dustless. The hurricane that was completely condensed from killing intent would leave deep and dazzling cracks when it brushed the ground and walls. It could be imagined how terrible it would be when these strange hurricanes passed through the human body. Being badly mutilated was just the result of God's mercy. A little carelessness would result in death by 1,000 cuts and 1,000 cuts. Dustless's whole person seemed to be bound and imprisoned, standing in the same place without dodging. Cut your body into pieces, ha ha ha, Shilyu of the Rain laughed ferociously. His whole body was covered with a strange bloody light, and a strong murderous aura came head-on. It was as if he was in a pool of blood and was surrounded by boundless hell. You also know how to play this kind of trick to tease children. It seems that my previous understanding of you is too shallow. The materialized body suddenly turned into a virtual shadow. The oncoming cold wind swept past Dustless's body and flew straight to the prison cell behind him. Clang clang clang, the hard fence left a shocking scratch mark. If it fell on the human body, it could easily cut off the body. Ah! I always thought that you were a little farsighted, but I didn't expect you to play such a ridiculous trick. It seems that you are also a short-sighted person. Wu Chen's expression was as if he was in a trance. Then I'm sorry, I like to play child's play. Seeing Dustless avoid the attack unscathed, Shilyu of the Rain's mouth twitched, and his old face turned green. Someone of your level is not suitable to be a person to negotiate terms with, you even have the qualifications to be my subordinate. Wu Chen bluntly said as he sized up Shilyu of the Rain, who was about to vomit blood. Robin's strength was close to that of an admiral, that is, a quasi-admiral, and Hancock was also an admiral. As for Doflamingo, Hawkeye, and Green Pepper, they were all generals. Even Hawkeye was stronger than the generals. Then shouldn't I feel honored to be chosen by you? Hearing this, Shilyu of the Rain, who immediately understood Dustless's meaning, was like a cat whose tail was stepped on. He almost roared back sarcastically. Of course, you should feel honored. Dustless said as if it was a matter of course, there is a gap between your strength and that little girl Robin's, not to mention others, especially now that you are a prisoner. I'm not even as good as a little girl. Shilyu of the Rain's eyes were burning with anger. This is an unchangeable fact. Don't think that you can underestimate the other party because she is a woman. There are many strong women in this world. Boa Hancock was a strong woman. After Dustless's training, her strength reached the level of an admiral, and she also had Overlord Hockey, and the girls who later joined the Blackbeard Pirates were not ordinary goods. Not to mention the several women in the Dustless system. Their strengths were all people who shocked the world. You don't agree? Looking at Shilyu of the Rain with his eyes closed, Dustless asked. Shilyu of the Rain didn't answer, but continued to wander, treating Dustless as if he didn't exist, and even humming a song in his mouth to deliberately disgust him. But he didn't wait for long. With Dustless's words, his face changed dramatically. If you don't agree, then I will beat you until you do. Shilyu of the Rain's face was gloomy. He suddenly opened his eyes and stared at the smiling Dustless. He roared madly like a wild beast, you want to take advantage of people when they are in danger. I am a prisoner now, you are a Marine, your duty is to protect me, not to beat me. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled, his eyes turned strangely, and immediately under Shilyu of the Rain's horrified gaze, his eyes turned into a strange pentagram eyes. It is Dustless's eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. What an evil and gloomy feeling. What are those eyes? At the moment when eternal Mangekyo Sharingan appeared, Shilyu of the Rain, who was being stared at, had a feeling of falling into an ice cave, and the world around him was dead and desperate, as if he had come to the underworld. Shaking his head, Shilyu of the Rain had goosebumps all over his body, and he couldn't help sweating. He knew that this was an illusion caused by those evil eyes. Look at my eyes. In fact, it's just a matter of time to deal with you. Well, if I don't let you see the gap between us, you will always resist. As Dustless's voice fell, the scarlet Sharingan surged with evil ripples, as if it could distort time and space, and the world in Shiryu of the Rain's eyes underwent a tremendous change. Tsukuyami, as Dustless's voice fell, Shiryu of the Rain suddenly fell to the ground, and his whole body was motionless, and he obviously lost consciousness. His whole body trembled slightly, as if he had encountered something terrible. Dustless's face was full of sneer and disdain. The human beings in this world can't understand the mystery of Sharingan at all. They only need to look at Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, and they will forever be addicted to the nightmare created by Sharingan. Chapter 783. Looking down at Shiryu, who was trembling all over, Dustless closed his eyes. Don't say that they don't know the ability of Sharingan, even if they have never seen it. It is reasonable for them to be affected. In the strange world, it is quite similar to the outside world. The only difference is that the sky is dark red, like an endless hell, and it feels particularly oppressive. His sight spread out, staring at the strange world. Shiryu was a little lost for a while. This is the world inside Tsukuyami. Don't be surprised, everything is just an illusion. A light voice floated, and Shiryu looked over subconsciously. He saw that about 3 feet away in front of him, a large number of photons violently condensed and turned into Dustless's body. In this world, I am God, and the destruction and existence of all things in the world are just my thoughts. Wuchen looked directly at Shiryu of the Rain, who had not recovered from his shock, and said calmly, "Bring it on. Let me see how much progress you have made in the past 10 years. I deliberately kept your strength at the peak." When the voice fell, Dustless's finger gently pointed at the void, and his sword, the second-generation Ghost Blade, appeared in Shiryu's hand out of thin air. "Deliberately preserved my strength at the peak." Shiryu of the Rain smiled disdainfully. "Don't make it sound so kind and nice, as if you have seen my strength. Remember clearly, although I was defeated by you, it was more than 10 years ago." Clang! With the roar of steel, the second-generation Ghost Blade in Shiryu's hand cut through the void, and the demon light of the whole body shone brightly, and the second-generation Ghost Blade emitted a strange purple light. "Ao ao ao ao." The sharp roar in the surrounding space was like the screams of thousands of ghosts, which made people shudder. Even because the demon aura was too strong, Shiryu's whole body was covered with a purple coat condensed by high density. It was particularly creepy. "Eyesore, quickly disappear. As long as you die, this annoying world will disappear." The hideous and almost distorted ugly face, across the bloody light, the second-generation ghost in the hand of Shiryu of the Rain raised the sword, the blood-red chop cut through the void, and went straight to Dustless to devour. Caw caw caw. Because the power was too terrifying, the ground along the way exploded one after another. The second-generation Ghost Blade, what a strong demon aura, but it's just strong. Calmly staring at the chop, Dustless did not avoid it, raised his thin right hand, and the corner of his mouth opened slightly. Armament hockey hardening. Does this bastard want to? Overconfident, I am not the same person from 10 years ago. Shiryu of the Rain gloomily roared, the rough hand holding the second-generation Ghost Blade was oozing sweat. How preposterous. Wu Chen's action was a blatant slap to his face. "Tear him apart for me." At the moment when the blood-red chop swallowed Dustless, Shiryu roared excitedly, his face full of morbid fanaticism, as if he had already seen the miserable scene of Dustless's flesh and blood. "Tear me apart." Naive. Dustless's face remained unchanged. With a bang sound, the small black hand armed easily grabbed the galloping red light and stopped his advance. Caw caw caw, the blood-red powerful chop was obviously unwilling to give up, and the huge light released a demon light, madly impacting Dustless's right hand, and the strength gradually increased and increased, making a saw-like cutting sound, which made people's scalp numb. Dustless stood in the same place, without moving an inch, standing quietly, his expression indifferent, and the fierce chop caught by his right hand could not shake him at all. Is that all? What's the use of this funny attack? Your performance is really vulgar and clumsy, Shilyu. Glancing at Shilyu, Dustless looked indifferently at the blood-red chop in his right hand, and his eyes flashed with contempt, and then his right arm condensed a powerful force, and his 5 fingers gently closed. Caw caw caw, the crisp sound of a shattering mirror resounded throughout the blood-red void. Immediately after, Shilyu's slash exploded like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, turning into countless streaks of red light that scattered in all directions. Boom boom boom, the intact ground suddenly had a lot of holes, as many as sand, countless, all thanks to Shilyu of the Rain slash. Ah! It seems that if you go to dig the ground, those poor workers will lose their jobs. Putting his right hand back in his trouser pocket, Dustless said with a smile, and there was more ridicule in his words. Shilyu trembled with anger, and his arm trembled as if he would throw away the tachi in his hand at any time. You bastard! I give you an inch and you want a yard, give you an inch and you want a yard. A chill came from behind him, and after Shilyu of the Rain was startled, his eyes filled with killing intent that could destroy all things. Without even thinking about it, the second-generation ghost blade quickly waved and mercilessly slashed backwards, a cold light sweeping towards the face behind him. Clang! The unstoppable second-generation ghost blade suddenly stopped, and Shilyu was stunned, and immediately gritted his teeth and waved the second-generation ghost blade, but he couldn't move it. It gave him such an illusion that it was stuck between the cracks of the mountain and he couldn't move it at all. Looking closely, Dustless's right hand covered with armament hockey easily grabbed the second-generation ghost blade. Staring at Shilyu's rough, dull eyes, Dustless suddenly shook his head. The strength of the peak is just like this, you are too weak, it seems that you are not suitable to be a subordinate. Chapter 784. Gulp. Shilyu of the Rain was stunned, and his face was full of horror. He wiped his eyes with his other hand, thinking it was an illusion. Impossible, this must be some kind of witchcraft. The white and tender hand covered with armament hockey is clearly as exquisite as a little girl's fingers. The simple first impression is that it belongs to the fragile and powerless type. The power is surprisingly amazing. Not to mention pulling out the saber, even moving it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. By the way, you just said that this world is composed of jinjutsu. The scene in front of me must also be an illusion to fool people. You bastard cheated. A light flashed in his mind, and Shilyu of the Rain said to himself with certainty. Witchcraft. Illusion. Are you a kid who hasn't grown up? How long are you going to deceive yourself? It seems that Dustless was shocked by Shilyu's idiotic behavior. He couldn't help but loosen his grip on the second-generation ghost blade. He took this opportunity to pull out the second-generation ghost blade and quickly pulled a distance away from Dustless. His eyes widened as he looked at Dustless in disbelief. His heart was filled with mixed feelings and finally replaced by resentment. The scene of being crushed by overwhelming strength more than 10 years ago was still vivid in his mind. This is also the driving force behind Shilyu of the Rain's progress. Today, when he met Dustless, he thought that he could wash away his shame, but he didn't expect the reality to be so cruel. There is nothing to be unwilling. While you are improving, others are also improving, and even faster than you. In the end, you are already behind. Shilyu of the Rain is nearly 50 years old, his potential is exhausted, and his progress is limited, not to mention that he has been imprisoned and impelled down for most of his life. The room for improvement is limited. I only used 80% of my strength just now. It's too early for you to make assertions. Shilyu of the Rain roared. Obviously, he did not give up. His hysterical tone was full of madness, and anger dominated his thoughts. Boring, I said, you have already lost. Don't think that you can't be heard in this jinjutsu world. Hearing Shilyu of the Rain's words, Dustless said seriously. Injuries in the Tsukuyumi world weren't ineffective. It was equivalent to mental torture, far more painful than physical torture. Sometimes, the more seriously the enemy was persuaded, not only would they not be grateful, but they would also treat it as a way to show weakness, just like the crazy Shiryu of the rain. Hearing Dustless's words, not only did he not feel grateful, but his killing intent became even denser, gradually becoming real. His eyes were corroded by the second-generation Ghost Blade, turning into bloodthirsty purple eyes. The second-generation Ghost Blade stores a majestic demonic power. Once the host can't intimidate it, or like Shiryu of the Rain, the demonic power will take the opportunity to go berserk and turn him into a bloodthirsty machine. It seems like I can't take it anymore, Dustless said in surprise as he stroked his smooth chin. Once the demonic aura corroded the brain, the person would forever lose their sense of direction and sink into a murderous devil. Saving them would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Can't hold on. Who do you think I am? Shiryu of the Rain's purple eyes flashed with clarity, and he said hoarsely. The demonic aura all over his body quickly converged. Strangely, he didn't look back. The blade of the second-generation Ghost Blade sank into Shiryu of the Rain's body like a stone into the sea, and there was no movement at all. It was absorbed. Shiryu of the Rain's body underwent an astonishing change. His aura continued to rise, boundless like a vast ocean. The muscles and height of his body, including every part of his limbs, were growing larger. Of course, his strength was also rising. He, a sinister and smug laughter jumped out of his mouth, and his pupils dilated as he glanced straight at Dustless. Shiryu of the Rain wanted to see the long-lost fear on Dustless's face. Unfortunately, he was destined to be disappointed. The eternal face was full of silence and never changed. What made Shiryu of the Rain vomit blood the most was that this guy actually looked up at the blood-red sky and ignored him. Whiz whiz whiz, the berserk Shiryu of the Rain raised his sword and slashed down. 3 huge slashes swept out of the air, like the roar of a demon. The void trembled slightly, and the sharp roar sounded the requiem of the doomsday. Wherever the demon light of destruction went, the space was distorted and changed, and the ground was easily torn apart like paper scraps. Although the slashes are a lot stronger, it's still the same trick. How can this simple and casual trick work? Disappointment flashed in Dustless's eyes. Like the trick just now, the power has become stronger, but the essence has not changed. If Shiryu wants to rely on pure physical damage to him, he is still far from it. Armament hockey hardening. His right arm was once again eroded by armament hockey, and Dustless chose to use the same trick. Boom! When the 3 slashes came ferociously and wanted to crush Dustless, his eyes shot a cold luster, and his small hand as thin as a willow branch also fell. Boom boom boom! Under Dustless's attack, the ferocious slashes burst in an instant and disappeared, and the scattered slashes turned into a blade storm that swallowed the surrounding. Dustless was also in the range of the lock, and the whole person was attacked by the shattering slashes. The blood penetrated the ground, and the smoke and dust were everywhere, and the clarity was less than 1 meter. Is it done? Rubbing his eyes, Shiryu of the Rain looked at him. His eyes solidified, and suddenly he found that Dustless was gone. Game over. Light speed kick. The light flickered behind him, enough to destroy the mountain. Shiryu of the Rain's body turned into a flash of light, and immediately the void splashed with a huge fire, and the ground was completely flattened. Shiryu, who was burnt, became a candle in the wind. Chapter 785. Staring blankly at the scorched Shiryu of the Rain, Dustless gently moved his limbs, and there was a crackling sound of bones. His pupils were like thousands of years of ice, without the slightest human emotion, only indifference and aloofness isolated from the world. Shiryu of the Rain's strength may be a nightmarish existence for others, but if he wants to rely on it to shake Dustless, he is setting himself on fire. Don't think it's over. In the world of illusion, the damage will also be transferred to the real body. Glancing at Shilyu of the Rain, who was pretending to be dead, Dustless disdainfully mocked. Looking up, he saw Shilyu of the Rain's body emitting hot steam, burned beyond recognition, exuding a pungent smell of meat, and the skin all over his body was burned in large areas, and the ending was unbearable to look directly at. Some people are like this, they have to court their own death. Originally, as long as he agreed to the conditions, Dustless could let him live in the future, but who would have thought that Shilyu of the Rain would do the opposite, and the end result was to ask for trouble. The road was his own choice, and no one forced Shilyu of the Rain. This is the gap between realms. Sure enough, pure passion can't make up for it. Shilyu of the Rain raised his head with difficulty and looked up at Wu Chen's indifferent face. His eyes were always expressionless. Shilyu of the Rain's tone carried endless desolation and powerlessness. Some powerful enemies, as long as they work hard, with a sincere heart, it is only a matter of time before they catch up with him. However, some enemies, like Dustless of the super monster type, no matter how hard they try, they can't catch up with him in the end. Just like what Wu Qin had said before, while you were improving, others were no exception. Even, the distance between them is not getting closer, but getting farther and farther. He can only watch silently. Still want to continue to struggle. Only by drifting with the tide can you survive. Challenging the wheel of fate is just asking for humiliation, just like you are now. Not only do you not get any return, but also a miserable scene of a stray dog. Looking at the embarrassed Shilyu of the Rain, Dustless said straightforwardly. Shilyu of the Rain's expression flashed a hint of struggle. He was Dustless's lackey. His arrogant heart could not accept it. He was also a famous swordsman. He could not swallow his anger if he was tamed without saying a word. After annihilating the Blackbeard pirates, I will set you free. Of course. If you're discovered by Blackbeard in advance and killed by him, you can only blame yourself for not being capable enough. Dustless shrugged. It had nothing to do with him. Strong people knew how to survive. On the other hand, if they couldn't survive, they could only be eliminated by history and swept into the garbage dump of the river of time. I promise you. Shilyu of the Rain's eyes changed rapidly, and he finally chose to compromise. Brave Surge's final fate was to be smashed to pieces. Are you really willing to let me go? Shilyu of the Rain doubted this. Turning his head and glancing at Shilyu of the Rain, Dustless nodded undeniably. He really didn't intend to embarrass this kid. After completing the task, he could choose to go to the ends of the earth. Using you is temporary. Even if you agree to be my subordinate, I won't take you in. His eyes were clear as water, and Dustless's tone was involuntarily convincing. Forget it. With a snort, Shilyu of the Rain was full of resentment and anger. Now he was still a prisoner. If he wanted to vent, at least he had to get out of this cage. Dustless was not the object of his complaints. How long will it take for me to get out? I have lived in this damn place for more than 10 years. If I stay for one more second, my body will vomit uncontrollably. Shilyu of the Rain said with a disgusted face. In Impel Down, since he lost to Magellan, the only thing that has not changed for more than 10 years is this broken cell that can't be broken again. This time, it has been more than 10 years. It may take a while. When the Warring States executes Whitebeard, Blackbeard should invade Impel Down during the short gap between the two forces. Now Blackbeard will not dare to attack Impel Down. Impel Down is full of experts, and the high-level battle power of the Marine headquarters will support at any time. At least wait until all the high-end battle power is restrained. Blackbeard will choose to wait for the opportunity to start. He is the kind of person who believes in being careful. How long will it take? Shilyu of the Rain's tone was low and full of dissatisfaction. You can let me out now. Don't waste precious time. It's no different from playing house. Hearing this, Wuchen glanced at him and then explained softly, those who can't keep their cool are the little demons. You've been in prison for more than 10 years. 1 or 2 months won't matter much. How can you understand my feelings? Thinking of the experience in recent years, Shilyu of the Rain's forehead showed the blue veins, and the cold murderous aura instantly froze the moisture in the atmosphere. The more powerful a prisoner was, the more they would be exploited. A tiger that fell from the sky would be bullied by dogs. This was what it meant. After being imprisoned for so many years, any random cat or dog would shout at Shilyu of the Rain. Quietly looking at Shilyu of the Rain's expression, Dustless can also sigh. The prisoners in Impel Down have been cruelly exploited, and their hatred for the Marine and the government is even deeper. Once this group of tigers breaks out of the cage, they will instinctively attack the Marine without the guidance of others, because the two sides have left an indelible hatred. Chapter 786. The prisoners in Impel Down are often oppressed by the jailers, and all kinds of torture are common. There is no doubt that after the jailbreak, the first target of revenge is the Marine. Time and space were distorted, and the strange world changed sharply. The world in front of him suddenly turned dark, and he returned to Impel Down again. It took nearly an hour in the world of Tsukuyumi, but it was only a second in the real world. Shilyu of the Rain's face instantly changed. The corners of his mouth and his cheeks were swollen. His whole face was dark red, and he looked like he was in extreme pain. It seemed that something was about to break out of his mouth, and blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. Puchi! The damaged ground was covered with large bloodstains, and the air was filled with a pungent smell. Shilyu was lying on the ground with a pale face, and it was difficult for him to move his body. Is this the sequelae of being hit hard in the world of Tsukuyumi? Shilyu's spirit suffered a heavy blow, and he was on the verge of collapse. Not to mention moving his body, even breathing was dozens of times more difficult. His throat and nostrils seemed to be blocked, and his body was cold, and he had an illusion that he was about to suffocate. There was also a burst of tingling pain all over his body, like hundreds of millions of needles, and every inch of his skin was damaged. I tried my best to suppress the power of the lightspeed kick, but I didn't expect that in the end, it would cause such a consequence. Tsukuyumi World suffered a spiritual attack, and the physical attack caused by the lightspeed kick was also converted into a spiritual attack. Shilyu's appearance was normal because of the full force of the lightspeed kick. No, the reason is not me at all. The fundamental problem is still with you. Yan's eyes were like torches, and there was a sharp edge. My problem. Shilyu was stunned when he heard the words, and then he raised his head and looked at Yan's black eyes. His painful eyes were confused, and he asked without thinking, "What do you mean, don't beat around the bush?" The luster in his eyes was as bright as the stars in the sky. Wuchen saw the truth with a single glance. At first, I classified your strength as at the level of a general, but, according to the current situation, you haven't reached the level of a general yet. Now it seems that all my previous speculations were just my own wishful thinking. Dustless's eyes could not help but darken as he spoke in disappointment. Hearing this, Shilyu of the Rain's old face twitched, and his internal organs once again rolled up a stormy wave, and a hot current surged up like a volcanic eruption. Puchi! A large mouthful of pungent scarlet blood burst out of his mouth again. Shilyu of the Rain clenched his teeth tightly. He thought that Dustless was going to say something big, but it turned out that he was just mocking him for being weak. After more than 10 years, he had not even reached the level of a general. Don't think that the general is a big idiot, there are only a few in the world. Shilyu of the Rain's yellow teeth were bleeding, and he argued angrily. He faintly glanced at Shilyu of the Rain. In the darkness of the cell, his deep eyes were even more charming and sparkling. That's why I said it was my wishful thinking. As his voice fell, a large number of photons floated out of Dustless's body, ignoring the existence of the prison bars, and leisurely walked out of Shilyu of the Rain's independent cell. "You'd better abide by your promise, or else." Dustless's eyes flashed with cold light, and his meaning was self-evident. He turned his head and glanced at Shilyu of the Rain. At this moment, he tried to stand up. He tried several times in succession, but in the end, Dustless still failed, and could only quietly stick to the ground. "Or else what?" Shilyu of the Rain asked in a hoarse voice. "The world is so big, boundless, if I want to run to a deserted island and live in seclusion, you can't do anything about it." His tone was full of pride, and Shilyu of the Rain said confidently. "The islands in the world were as many as the stars in the sky, countless. If he hid in one of them and lived a peaceful life, Dustless would also be helpless." Naive, Dustless's mouth was slightly raised, and his face was full of ridicule. "In fact, the fastest person to die in the world is someone like you who likes to be smart. I advise you not to seek your own death. My good temper has a time limit." Without waiting for Shilyu of the Rain to speak, Dustless moved and walked toward the black tunnel ahead, which was the only way out of Impel Down. "Do you think you are a god?" "Why wouldn't I dare?" As if he had suffered an unprecedented humiliation, Shilyu of the Rain actually stood up by nerve reflex, gnashing his teeth and roaring at Dustless's gradually disappearing figure. Because of excessive indignation, his tone was a little sharp. "If you think you have a long life, you could try." 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Water 7, Frankie's house. In a huge open space with no people around, the strangely shaped house was clearly visible. The people who saw it behaved abnormally, and they all changed their faces and left. Frankie's name was well known in Water 7, and everyone called him a pervert. Unfortunately, this guy's face was unprecedented. He was not ashamed but proud. He led a group of younger brothers to play all day long. About 30 meters away from Frankie's house, a group of figures loomed. Their figures were different from normal humans, and their eyes flashed with a cold light. Obviously, they were not a group of good people. Chapter 787. This group of unknown mysterious people were all standing strangely on the branches. What was even more inconceivable was that these branches were clearly only as tough as willow branches, yet they were able to step on them and remain unscathed. It was obvious that their skills were extraordinary, and they were even whispering to each other. Looking closely, it was the members of the CP9. Blueno. "Are you sure that the design of Pluton is in Frankie's hands?" Califa, the only female member of the CP9, frowned as she thought of Frankie, a man with a special hobby, and her skin was numb. Not only Califa, but the other members also looked at Blueno strangely. Frankie was an idiot, he didn't look like a person worth trusting. "I heard it with my own ears." Bruno patted his chest and swore solemnly. Hearing this, the group of CP9 members frowned. They have been hiding for several years. If the design of Pluton really exists, then the ending will be perfect. If it's just a rumor, then their identity will be exposed. This meant that 7 years of lying low was about to go down the drain. Everything he had done in the past would vanish into thin air. The gains would not make up for the losses. One wrong step and everything would be over. "Do you want to ask him?" Seeing that the team was in a dilemma, Blueno suggested tentatively. "Him." The group of CP9 members were stunned and immediately looked at Blueno. Lucci was the one in charge of the team, but he obviously wasn't talking about Lucci but someone else. "I'm talking about Spandam. After all, he is our boss. You should know that he dash." Blueno's voice suddenly stopped, and his companions looked at him as if he was an idiot. Kaku, who was holding his arms in front of his chest, said with disdain, "If we count on that idiot, let alone getting the Pluton King blueprint, we might not even be able to survive. Kaku's face was full of disdain. He held a contemptuous attitude towards this waste of a superior. Every time he saw his ugly and disgusting face, he would feel nauseous. After thinking about it, everyone looked at Lucci, who was silent. He was the captain of the team, so the final decision was up to him. "I've decided to give it a try." Seeing all the members looking at him, Lucci took a deep breath and looked at Frankie's house in the distance. His eyes shot out a bloody light. "If we go down in fear, we won't get the design for the rest of our lives, and we seem to have been deceived by the original scene from the beginning." Lucci's eyes were shining as if he could see through everything, and the doubts of the past disappeared. Now that he looked back, everything that had happened in the past could be made sense. Don't be fooled by appearances. Lucci's face turned black as he thought of the possibility of being kept in the dark in recent years. Have you forgotten the relationship between Frankie, Iceberg, and the former shipbuilder Tom? The three of them used to have a close master-disciple relationship. They were like father and son. Iceberg, as the mayor, secretly gave Pluto's blueprint to Frankie, while Iceberg attracted the world government's attention. The CP9 members heard this and nodded. The relationship between Frankie, Iceberg, and Tom was indeed unclear. Although Iceberg and Frankie didn't seem to care about each other, they actually had a secret relationship. It's watertight. Sometimes, it's because it's too perfect that it's full of flaws. Looking at Frankie's house in front of him, Lucci's eyes became even colder. He immediately jumped down from the branch and strode forward with his head held high. "Everything is ready. Let's grab Frankie for the time being and then escort him to Eni's lobby." Lucci's eyes were shining, and his tone was irresistible. Kaku, Califa, and the others looked at each other and jumped down from the branches and followed Lucci's footsteps. They grew up together as CP9 members. For Lucci's orders, they will choose to obey both public and private orders. How about the Straw Hat Pirates? They have been playing with Iceberg recently. Califa suddenly interrupted. As Iceberg's secretary, any trace of him couldn't escape Califa's eyes. "Those guys are from the Marine. We are the CP9. We don't need to meddle in their business." Kaku frowned. Hearing this, Califa shook her head, her beautiful eyes flashing with ruthlessness. "I mean, what if they meddle in other people's business?" If Lucci's previous speculation is true, then it means that Frankie's relationship with Iceberg is still the same as before. In this way, Iceberg won't just watch Frankie get caught. Califa analyzed. If that really happens, we will annihilate the Straw Hat Pirates. Lucci clenched his fist and said decisively. He didn't have an indecisive personality. He was decisive and ruthless. At this moment, Frankie's house was a different scene. A strange group of people were having a party, laughing and singing, not realizing the approaching danger. As for Frankie himself, he was wearing underwear and was performing comically. He seemed to be immersed in his unique art. Because he was too focused, he even forgot himself. Chapter 788. The so-called Frankie's house, to some extent, was more like Frankie's personal bowl. The lights were shining and the screams were incessant. The only disgusting thing was that they were all men. No wonder he was called a pervert. Boom, boom, boom. The ground suddenly trembled, and with a loud bang, the dazzling sunlight suddenly shone in. Everyone in the house of Frankie was stunned. They were used to being domineering on the island, and very few people dared to provoke them. This sudden scene petrified the people present, and they immediately revealed a terrified expression. They looked at the blue-haired man on the stage and instinctively stepped back. This strange middle-aged man was dressed funny. He only wore boxers on his lower body. His thick legs were covered with dense hair, and he wore a funny pair of sunglasses. People couldn't help but associate him with a clown. Bastard, how dare you destroy my house's door? Who did this? Come out. Frankie, who regained his senses, roared, and the endless impact spread out. Those who were affected all felt a level 10 wind blowing over their body. They looked at Frankie with lingering fear. Their boss was angry. What are you doing? Can't you see clearly? No wonder you are a pervert. Of course, we are here to destroy your house. Undisguised mockery spread out and inevitably entered Frankie's ears. It ignited the fire in his heart. Frankie was already burning with anger, and his entire right arm was trembling as if it was going to break. There were visible cracks that could be seen with the naked eye. Era. What a good body. You can transform your body to this state with your own ability. It seems that your shipbuilding technology is far better than ours. But that's right, we are not shipbuilders. Several figures came into view from the door that had been destroyed by the chisel ship. It's you guys. Frankie restrained his anger and glared at them. You guys dare to destroy my house. But then again, you are all Iceberg's workers. How can you suddenly become so strong? Frankie looked at them cautiously. He was keenly aware that something was wrong. Frankie, raising his eyelids, Lucci stepped forward and turned into a gust of wind. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, Frankie closed his eyes out of instinct as he felt a sharp gust of wind in front of him. A second later, he felt that the wind had calmed down, so he slowly opened his eyes. So fast. Just when did it happen? Staring at Lucci in front of him, Frankie couldn't describe the shock in his heart. These usually honest shipbuilders have now turned into awakened Azura, a cold-blooded butcher. Especially Lucifer in front of him, his whole body was full of misfortune. I don't want to waste my breath. Hand over the design you've been keeping, and I'll spare your life. Lucci didn't even look at Frankie. He simply closed his eyes as if he was talking to the air, as if he didn't exist. Frankie was like an eyesore. Lucci felt dirty just by looking at him. What kind of attitude is this? Frankie's old face changed as he glared at him. Hearing this, Lucci's face wrinkled and squeezed together. His closed eyes immediately opened and narrowed into a line, emitting a dangerous and sinister light. Asking for trouble. The moment his voice fell, Lucci's body turned into an afterimage and disappeared from Frankie's eyes. Are you kidding me? How can a mere human be so fast? Frankie's face was sluggish. He instinctively wiped his eyes and said in surprise, yes, they are also shipbuilders. They must have modified their bodies before. Ignorant. A ghostly indifferent voice fell from the sky, followed by a black shadow coming down from the sky. An explosive force condensed on his feet, and Frankie was instantly hit. Boom boom boom. The ground couldn't withstand the terrifying force and burst open, creating a huge pit. An invisible shockwave spread out, and the strangely shaped, Frankie's house, collapsed like paper. The dazzling sunlight entered everyone's eyes. Everyone raised their hands to block the erosion of the light. They all looked at the shocking scene in silence. Boss has been killed. Run. People's hearts were fragile. Seeing their boss Frankie get killed so easily, these fence-sitters started to flee. Lucci's eyes were filled with a cold light as he looked at the rest of the CP9 members with a cold look. That means he wants to kill all of them. How can he be so strong? He's just a shipbuilder, Frankie said with a trembling voice. His whole body was almost scrapped. That casual kick easily injured him. I'll repeat it for the last time. Hand over the Pluto blueprint, Lucci said coldly as he looked down at Frankie. His face remained stoic. Pluton. What is that? I don't have that kind of thing. Frankie's eyes flashed with panic as he loudly argued. He shouted loudly, trying to prove his innocence. Sure enough, it's in this guy's hands. A faint smile appeared on Lucci's face as he noticed Frankie's panic. The CP9 has been lurking in Water 7 for several years just for the Pluton blueprint. Chapter 789. Lucci's eyes were like an eagle's. His sharp eyes overflowed with a threatening light. Under these eyes, nothing could hide. Frankie's biggest secret was completely exposed to Lucci's eyes. Sorry, what do you mean? I don't understand. Frankie said with a straight face. Hearing this, Lucci's frozen face loosened, revealing a rare faint smile. He withdrew his leg from Frankie's body and replaced it with a playful expression. Ah! The blood-curdling screams in the surroundings were chilling and horrifying. The sorrowful cries that sounded like they were better off dead were filled with a deep sense of despair. Looking carefully, the surrounding ground was soaked with pungent blood. It was like purgatory on earth. There were also many dismembered corpses and severed limbs. Frankie's minions were easily crushed by Lucci's CP9. They didn't even have the power to fight back. These rookies couldn't do anything at all. Stop it, you bastards! Hearing the miserable screams, Frankie's eyes turned red as he roared sharply, his tone filled with hysteria. As you wish, all of you stop. Lucci's powerful voice spread, stopping the CP9 from slaughtering Frankie's men, and immediately said, as a reward, you should also tell us the whereabouts of the Pluton design. I don't know. Frankie argued with a red face. Is that so? Hearing this, the corner of Lucci's mouth once again flashed a devilish smile. He waved his right hand with great momentum, and the miserable scream once again resounded throughout the sky. The CP9 once again began to slaughter Frankie's men. Bastard, let go of me, I'll tear you apart alive. Frankie roared angrily, his words were full of hatred. He wanted to tear Lucci and the members of the CP9 to pieces and burn their bones to ashes. You? Lucci looked at Lucci expressionlessly. Looking at his mechanical right arm, Lucci's eyes flickered with cold light. He suddenly lifted his right foot and a silver flash appeared. Renkyaku. The white light was as sharp as a blade, and no one dared to look directly at it. It could easily tear the ground apart, and it immediately kicked towards Frankie's mechanical right arm. Kacha, his right arm was instantly obliterated and turned into a pile of scrap metal. You should be more obedient this way. Lucci retracted his right foot and looked down at the ferocious Frankie. Lucci calmly said as if he had done something insignificant and remained calm from beginning to end. Who the hell are you, bastard? Frankie suppressed the shock in his heart. Remembering the importance of Pluto, he could only choose to ignore the death of his subordinates. A lot of people are coming. Let's retreat for now. As long as we bring Frankie with us, the Pluto King's design will fall into our hands sooner or later. Kaku cautiously said. Frankie wouldn't speak for a while, and there was already a large group of people coming, so there was no need to waste time. Lucci pondered for a few seconds before nodding slightly. Frankie was clearly stalling for time. It was best to take him away. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Lucci and the others also arrived at Eni's lobby from Water 7. They thought they would be greeted by their boss, Spandam, but they didn't expect to be greeted by another nightmare. Ah! You are finally back, I have been waiting for 4 days. Dustless had a smile on his face as he waved at Lucci and the others. As for Spandam, he was standing next to Dustless. He was obviously the boss of the CP9, but in an instant, he became Dustless's foil. The faces of the CP9 members changed. Their faces were gloomy, but they could only smile awkwardly. Their ugly faces had a bright smile, it was enough to see how forced their smiles were. In the past, Mariehua and Dustless left an indelible impression on them. Invincible strength, and an exaggerated identity that could shake the world with a stomp of his feet, everything was enough for them to look up to. "This guy is Frankie, right?" Dustless asked as he stared at the steel freak with interest. Lucci and the others' faces stiffened, they immediately looked at each other and nodded. It was impossible to hide it. They were afraid that the idiot Spandam would tell the whole story to Dustless. "You guy." When Dustless appeared, Frankie stared at him. He felt like he had seen him before. Then he remembered that Dustless was already famous in the world when he was only in his 20s. He often read about him in the newspapers. He was a mysterious general who had become a legend, Marine Admiral. Frankie was silent for a long time before he suddenly realized that Dustless hasn't changed in the past decade. His appearance has always been the same as when he was 17 or 18 years old. "You are smart." After glancing at Frankie, Dustless looked straight into his eyes and said threateningly, "If you picked it up, then hand over the Pluto blueprint. I guarantee that you won't have to worry about food and clothing in the future. Otherwise, you will be imprisoned forever." Lucci and the others' faces changed. Dustless's words were tantamount to directly saying that he wanted to take the blueprint of Pluton. Although they are under the same force, and even Dustless's status is far higher than their CP9, Lucci and the others can't accept it. Chapter 790. In a spacious and bright room, Dustless was sitting leisurely on the sofa with his legs crossed. Spandam and the CP9 members were standing on both sides of him. "Are we going to give Pluton's blueprint to him for free?" The CP9 members looked at each other and saw the helplessness and unwillingness in each other's eyes. After years of hard work, they finally got Pluton's blueprint. Now that the cooked duck is about to fly away, the CP9 members are naturally unwilling. Although Dustless's identity is above the Gorasei, 5 elder stars, they are also clearly separated from each other. The CP9 only obeys the Gorasei, 5 elder stars. "We can only count on him." Everyone looked at Spandam. After all, this idiot is the boss of the CP9, and his status is also the highest. Even if his strength is lower than normal humans, his IQ is not to be complimented. His mouth is really good, and his flattery skills are deep. Maybe he can fool Dustless. But this time Lucci and the others are destined to be disappointed. "Bastard, why are you standing there stupidly? Go and pour tea." Spandam smiled at Dustless with a flattering expression, but his expression immediately changed faster than flipping a book. He roared at Califa with a stern face, inwardly scolding her for not knowing the rules. In one sentence, the CP9 members' faces turned black. Sure enough, he's just an idiot, he's unreliable except for flattery. Califa's beautiful eyes were spitting fire as she cursed in her heart. She glared at Spandam fiercely and then went to pour tea for Dustless. "What are you people doing here? I don't have the so-called Pluton's blueprint. I never understood that kind of thing. Don't accuse a good person." Frankie, who was tied with iron chains, screamed. At this moment, his right arm was scrapped, and the wound was full of damaged machinery. Developing your body didn't make your brain enough. You still don't realize what we are doing. What an idiot. Looks like the long period of development has dulled your brain. Spandam coldly stared at Frankie. Soon after, he walked in front of Frankie and looked down at him with the attitude of a victor. "Stop pretending. Hand over Pluto's design." Spandam, who was wearing a strange mask, threatened while waving the scimitar in his hand. Lucci and others did not hesitate to expose their identity as undercover agents to bring him back, which means that Pluton's blueprint is on him. There's no need to threaten him. It won't work on him. Dustless narrowed his eyes into slits. His eyes shone with a wise light. Frankie looked like a rough person, but in reality, he was very careful. Threats had no effect on him. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on Frankie. Those who were attentive would notice that Dustless's eyes were faintly changing. Something is wrong. Frankie. Did I remember it wrong? Wuchen's three-tomo Sharingan rolled around as he noticed that Frankie's body was empty and frowned. If he remembered correctly, in the original work, Frankie hid the blueprint in his body. However, with his Sharingan's perverted insight, Dustless didn't notice the existence of Pluto's blueprint hidden in his body. Dustless closed his eyes and recalled what happened in the past few days. His eyes shone with a wise light. He already had a vague idea of what was going on. This matter was obviously unusual. Since it's not in Frankie's body. I'm afraid it's probably in their bodies. The corner of his eyes looked at Lucci and the others. In the past few days, the only people who came in contact with Frankie were Spandam and CP9. There was no doubt that it was taken by one of them. This is interesting. Dustless had a strange smile on his face as he muttered to himself. Although it was just an unfounded guess, the only people who came in contact with Frankie in the past few days were them. Pluto's blueprint must be related to these people. This drama is not bad. I can barely watch it. Ignoring the existence of Spandam, Dustless locked his eyes on Lucci. Although no one knew what happened in Water 7, and the CP9 killed almost everyone on the scene, White Zetsu, who was spying in the dark, recorded the details of the battle. Rob Lucci killed Frankie alone and destroyed half of his arm. This guy is the biggest suspect. Maybe Pluto's blueprint was already in Lucci's hands, but he happened to meet Dustless and chose not to talk about it. At the same time, Khalifa walked over elegantly with a fragrant hot tea. The little girl's tea is good. As the strongest person in Eni's lobby, he was naturally the first one to enjoy it, followed by Spandam, Lucci, and the others. The Marine attaches great importance to the division of ranks, and so does Eni's lobby. Give me a cup too. Frankie said with a dry mouth. He had been tortured for the past few days, and his stomach started to growl and protest before he even had a chance to eat anything. Oh, yes, I don't want tea. It's better to have a cup of cola. Of course, not a mini one like yours. If possible, I want a big deluxe version. Hearing this, everyone's face turned gloomy. Even Dustless's calm mind couldn't help but tremble slightly. This bastard doesn't have any awareness of being a captive. Chapter 791. At the same time, on the other side, above the sea, a sharp roar pierced through the void, and an endless winding train galloped across the sea. The destination was the looming Eni's lobby hidden in the clouds in front of them. We're finally here, guys, cheer up. Luffy stood on the front of the train, looking at the impel down in the distance. His impassioned tone was full of confidence. Today, Luffy is no longer the immature boy he used to be. After several consecutive defeats, first Dustless, then Aokiji, although his hot-blooded nature hasn't weakened, he is much more mature than before. That's Eni's lobby. Unbelievable. Usopp's face was sluggish. The distant Eni's lobby was hidden in the clouds as if it was floating in the sky, and the visual conflict was particularly shocking. Isn't it a bit reckless for us to accept Iceberg's mission in a hurry? After all, we have only known each other for a few days. Usopp, who recovered, said with dissatisfaction. Ordinary enemies are nothing, but this time is different from the past. It's not a marine or a pirate, it's the world government's secret spy organization, CP9. Their strength is stronger than any enemy they have seen before. Shut up, Usopp. Zoro's eyes were filled with a ferocious light that belonged to a beast, an array of sword intent that wanted to cut off the sea spread out. The sword at his waist made a burst of clear sound, and he was quite excited. We are pirates, and it's common for us to fight against the world government. The Straw Hats nodded. They will be invincible in the future, so it's good to test the enemy now. Iceberg, San treated us sincerely. He also promised to help us build ships for free, so it's only right to help him save Frankie. Sanji said after smoking. Seeing this, Usopp tactfully shut his mouth. The harsh sound of the train's whistle was getting closer and closer, and finally it inevitably reached Dustless and the others' ears. That should be the water train. Looking as far as the eye could see, through the layers of clouds, the galloping train in the distance could be seen in his eyes. Due to the excellent dynamic capture ability, he could even clearly see Luffy and the others. You can't wait to die. I'll send all of you to hell this time. Spandam gritted his teeth as if his dignity had been trampled and insulted. He looked ferocious as if he wanted to cut the Straw Hat Pirates into pieces. Lucci, Kaku, Califa. Spandam leisurely turned around and glanced at the three of them. He then pointed at the devil fruits on the table. Hurry up and eat those devil fruits. They can increase your strength. Lucci and others frowned. Although they were quite unhappy with the tone of this order, they still walked to the table. After eating the devil fruit, immediately attacked the Straw Hat Pirates. They are pirates with a bounty of more than 100 million berries. They once defeated Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. It's impossible to count on the group outside. Spandam sighed and said dejectedly. He has absolute authority in Eni's lobby, but the real powerhouses are only the few in front of him. As for me, I will personally escort him to the Marine headquarters through the Gate of Justice. There are countless ways to make this idiot speak. Spandam's eyes flashed with cruelty as he sneered. A group of CP9 members looked at Spandam speechlessly. This guy is too shameless. He obviously wanted to take advantage of the situation and run to the Marine headquarters to take the lead, but he still said such righteous words. Shameless. Hearing this, Dustless looked at him deeply and then lay down on the sofa to rest. Boom. Boom. Boom, the chaotic and depressing shelling resounded through the sky. Eni's lobby suddenly splashed a secret fire, and the ground trembled slightly. The direction of the shelling was the train on the sea. Wouch! The powerful shelling suddenly exploded where Dustless and the others were. Boom! The harsh roar was particularly oppressive. Lucci, Dustless, and others were fine. Only Spandam was so scared that his legs were weak. If it weren't for the presence of Dustless, he would have run away. Hurry up and attack the Straw Hat Pirates, I will send Frankie to the Gate of Justice first. Spandam said with a pale face and immediately dragged Frankie out. The doubt in Wu Chen's eyes turned into understanding. Up to this point, he had already guessed the whereabouts of Pluto's design blueprint. It was exactly as he thought. It was among these people, but someone played a little trick to get it in advance. Hurry up. In the dark tunnel, there was an angry shout. There was no doubt that only Frankie and Spandam were connected to the Gate of Justice. Don't try to stall for time. Be careful or I'll send people to kill everyone in Water 7. That's your hometown. You don't want your hometown to sink. Since that's the case, you better be sensible. Spandam warned coldly, his tone was full of endless violence. Spandam. The child's play is over. Call out what I want. Chapter 792. With the help of the dim light, they could clearly see that there were more shadows on the ground. They were confronting Frankie and Spandam. The shadow stood in the darkness like a javelin, showing no fear at all. Mr. Admiral, Spandam was startled, and the panic in his eyes disappeared in a flash. He immediately smiled and said, "Could it be that you want to personally escort Frankie?" "Thank you." Then he pushed Frankie to Dustless's side. Wu Chen looked at Spandam meaningfully. After a moment of silence, he retracted his gaze. You are really despicable. The design of Pluto is already in your hands. You have guts. You even dare to lie to me. Spandam's face stiffened, then he said with a blank face, Frankie is a stubborn guy, he didn't say anything about Pluton's blueprint. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. Spandam pointed at Frankie with a flattering smile. His expression was even more affectionate than when he saw his own father. Frankie was silent, he just quietly looked at the ground. His face was no longer as violent as before. It seemed that the cold ground was more attractive than Dustless and Spandam. You bastard. Humph. Spandam was about to teach Frankie a lesson. Frankie was now tied up in chains, he was like a fish on the chopping board. Spandam naturally wasn't afraid. Your acting is really crude and inferior, Spandam. Wuchen suddenly spoke out to stop his action. You must be mistaken. Spandam argued, Lucci is a cold-blooded person, he can't get the answer. He is the ultimate killing machine trained by the government. You still don't want to admit it. Dustless just glanced at Spandam and said, you are wrong. Lucci is the ultimate killing machine, he can't get the information about Pluton's blueprint. Lucci's behavior is about bloody killing. That is, justice in the dark. He can't do this kind of torture. Not only him, but the entire CP9 can't do it. The only person who can do it is you. Dustless said. Spandam didn't understand, he asked blankly, they can't do it, only I can do it? Impossible, I am just an ordinary person. Ordinary person. Dustless said with a sneer, an ordinary person can't be the highest officer of the CP9. The reason why I said you can get Pluton's blueprint is because you are more despicable than them. In the end, Dustless's voice rose several decibels. As Spandam said, he was just an ordinary person, but in the end, he became the highest officer of the CP9. He was more despicable than others, he knew how to survive. Therefore, Spandam more suitable to deal with Frankie's stubbornness. He also knew how to be flexible, unlike Lucci, who only knew how to kill. Akiji seemed to have given you something. A light voice made Spandam's face change, cold sweat dripped from his forehead uncontrollably. This is the Golden Den Mushi, it's necessary to launch the Demon Slayer order. Dustless said as he took out the Golden Den Mushi. Why do you have such a thing? Frankie exclaimed in horror. Obviously, he was panicking due to his careless nature. We are both admirals, why don't I have something that Akiji has? But since you know the Golden Den Mushi, it means that you have the same idea as me. In this world, in addition to the admirals, only Spandam has the Golden Den Mushi. The reason why Frankie knew about it was because in the past few days, he took the opportunity to explain to Frankie the role of the Golden Den Mushi. Dustless's voice was very soft, but it was full of wisdom. If I'm not wrong, you should be secretly threatening Frankie. If he doesn't hand over Pluton's blueprint, you will launch the Demon Slayer order to destroy the entire Water 7. Only a despicable person like you can do this kind of thing. You and your father are the same. This kind of despicable means, Lucci wouldn't use it. Spandam's face was ugly as he looked up and saw Dustless's eagle eyes. His heart was filled with despair. In front of those shining eyes, all his secrets were exposed to the air, allowing Dustless to browse at will. You only have 3 seconds to think about it, don't force me to do it myself. Dustless said expressionlessly. The air flowing through his mouth froze into ice. Obviously, he wasn't joking. Spandam lowered his head. Indeed, as Dustless said, Pluton's blueprint is in his hands. He intends to give it to the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, instead of the Fleet Admiral. Spandam wants to take the credit. How do you know? I should have done it flawlessly, Frankie wouldn't dare to expose the secret. Spandam roared furiously, his eyes were bloodshot. When he met a marine admiral like Dustless, the Pluton design in his hand would immediately change owners. Flawless. A mere ant dares to say that. In this distorted world, there are always countless people like you who like to be self-righteous. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. This guy is just an ordinary slag. He relied on his father's influence to barely get to the top. He can't even beat an ordinary marine. Even if we take 10,000 steps back, even if your acting is really flawless, there are still many flaws. His voice was full of wisdom. Seeing Spandam still puzzled, Dustless explained, "Don't you understand? Sometimes perfection is a flaw. It's because everything is too normal that he appears abnormal and full of mistakes." Chapter 793. Everything was as smooth as flowing water, as if he had undergone special training. This was the biggest loophole. However, it seems that I should praise you. You can fool Lucci and the others. No, not only the CP9, even I thought that Pluton's blueprint was not in your hands. It's amazing to be able to do this, but it's over. Call out Pluton's blueprint, don't force me to do it myself. It has to be said that everyone has their value. For a person like Spandam to be able to play his despicableness to such a degree, it is also a kind of favor from God. Spandam gloomily took out Pluton's blueprint and looked at the ancient data in his hand. Although he couldn't understand it, he could clearly see the reluctance and unwillingness in his eyes. The cooked duck disappeared. I'm afraid no one can accept this kind of thing. These are the things that the 5 lords specifically requested. Thinking of the existence of Gorosei, 5 elder stars, Spandam's eyes flashed with cunning, and he raised his voice and said, "The things that the 5 masters want must be obtained, or the whole world will suffer their anger." Dustless heard this and looked cold, keenly smelling a threat and warning. A large number of photons suddenly floated out of his body and whizzed out. Wherever the beam went, everything was in a state of decay. The whole world has to suffer the anger of Gorosei, 5 elder stars. I am an exception among those countless people. The dazzling light that was enough to burn everything fell from the sky. Spandam was about to look up, but a majestic force poured down and instantly crushed his body. Under the impact of the powerful force, the ground cracked like a spider web. Boom, 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 the earth couldn't withstand the flash of light, forming a large scorched hole. In the deepest part of the hole, Dustless stepped on Spandam's chest. I didn't die. When did I become so strong? Especially my endurance, Spandam rejoiced and laughed with tears of joy. Unknowingly, he became so strong. Don't misunderstand, I was just afraid that Pluton's blueprint would be burnt, so you didn't bear the power of this blow. Dustless looked down at Spandam with an indifferent expression. The more he looked at Spandam, the more he felt that Spandam was an idiot. Soon after, he looked at the design of the Netherworld King in Spandam's hand, and a strong gravitational force emerged from his palm. These are the things that the 5 lords need. Mr. Great General, you'd better not harbor any evil thoughts. Spandam still chose to stand on this side when he recalled the terrifying strength and influence of the 5 elder stars. However, when he said that, Dustless's face darkened again. Of course, I'm not threatening you. I'm doing this for your sake. Spandam said hurriedly, with a look of loyalty on his face. It seems that Lucci didn't tell you about my past, Spandam. Ripples splashed from the bottom of his eyes, and a thick sneer swept across his face. As a celestial dragon, do I need to be afraid of the 5 elder stars whose status is not as good as mine? In this world, the status of the celestial dragons was above the Gorosei. Spandam was directly petrified. After a few seconds of sluggishness, he recovered and said in a trembling voice, You are actually a celestial dragon. Spandam was sweating profusely, the fear in his eyes was clearly visible, and his whole body was trembling uncontrollably. Celestial dragons were not bound to do things. They did not need a reason to kill people. Those who could be killed directly were God's blessings. There were many people who were tortured to death. I'll let you go this time. Looking at the design of the Netherworld King in his hand, Dustless withdrew his foot and turned to leave this place. Caesar had promised him that it would only take 2 years to obtain the other half of the design and create the complete Netherworld King. This evil star is finally gone. Staring at the back of Dustless, Spandam breathed a sigh of relief, and his whole spirit recovered a lot. Encountering a celestial dragon was more serious than encountering the enemy who killed his father. Right, Dustless's footsteps suddenly stopped and stood still. He seemed to be thinking about something. After a while, his body turned into an afterimage and disappeared. What a fast speed! Spandam opened his mouth in surprise. This was the strength of a general. When he moved, it was impossible to see with the naked eye. Thinking of Dustless's identity and his shocking strength, he was about to flatter him, but suddenly he felt a pain in his chest. Poochie! Dustless, who had disappeared, suddenly appeared behind Spandam. The golden photon greatsword in his hand was incomparably sharp. It pierced through Spandam's body, leaving behind a charred hole. Spandam could feel his vitality rapidly depleting. Why did you kill me? Spandam's eyes were bloodshot, and he roared unwillingly. His sharp tone made people tremble. You clearly said before that you would not kill me. Why are you going back on your words now? Spandam, who was gasping for breath, roared like a madman. He was about to die. He certainly did not care about status. Going back on my words. It's just nonsense. Glancing coldly at the hysterical Spandam, Dustless made a distressed expression and said helplessly, my memory is really not good. I am too forgetful. I said before that I would kill you in more than 3 seconds. From just now to now, it is far more than 3 seconds. Fortunately, I remembered when I was about to leave, so... It's natural to kill you. Chapter 794. Spandam stared at Dustless unwillingly. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and his body trembled with anger. He used all his strength to take out the golden den mushy and immediately pressed it. I will drag you down with me. Spandam roared with his spittle flying all over the sky, and a sick smile appeared on his cheeks. Not only you, but all the Marines and pirates on the island will fall, as well as the Straw Hat Pirates, CP9, and Nico Robin will all go to hell with me. Spandam laughed crazily. You want to kill me with a mere command. Do you think that the highest combat power in the Marine headquarters is a rookie? Dustless glanced at Spandam with pity as he sneered again and again. This kind of mad dog doesn't distinguish between friend and foe. Who knows when he will come out and bite you, so it's wise to kill him as soon as possible. Demon Slaughter Order. What is that? Damn it, Spandam wants to kill us as well. Run. At the same time, the contents of the conversation between Dustless and Spandam were broadcasted. The pirates and Marines in the war were all shocked, and then they threw away their weapons and fled. You took my Pluton blueprint, I will make you pay the price. Spandam roared with his last strength, and he stared at Dustless with vengeance, and immediately laughed wildly. Our conversation has been broadcasted all over Eni's lobby through the broadcast den mushy, you won't have it easy. It won't take long for the whole world to know that you have the Pluton blueprint, and the Marines and pirates won't let you go. After that, Spandam stared at Dustless's face, trying to find fear on his face. That's it. Vulgar. Dustless stepped on the den mushy and sneered, you idiot, don't forget that you have just activated the Demon Slaughter Order. The Demon Slaughter Order is an indiscriminate bombardment until the entire island is burned to ashes, which means that all the people on the island will be brutally slaughtered by the Marines. I have taken countless things in the world, and this so-called Pluton blueprint is just one of them, that's all. He aimed his thumb at Spandam's head, and the light beam condensed and swallowed his whole body in the next second. What a worrisome fellow. He's already dead, yet he's still causing me so much trouble. Spandam's body was burnt, and there was no trace of vitality, and the disgusting smell of meat floated around him. Dustless pondered for a while, and turned to leave. He originally planned to return to the Marine headquarters directly through the Gate of Justice, but now it seems like he has to change his plan. The order is effective against ordinary Marines and pirates, but it won't work against Lucci and Luffy. I have to kill them myself. In the dark tunnel, Den Mushy's voice, Dustless's face is dense. The news of getting Pluton blueprint must not be made known to everyone. Although Dustless isn't afraid of being the enemy of the whole world, there will be endless troubles. Therefore, Dustless decided to kill them himself to avoid spreading the news. He only needs to kill the CP9, and the Straw Hat Pirates will be the scapegoat. As for the ordinary Marines, the Demon Slaughter Order will be enough to kill them. Caw caw caw. At this moment, the ground trembled and cracked, and then White Zetsu broke out of the ground. I have sunk the ship's dock near Eni's lobby, and the pirates and Marines have become turtles in a jar. There is no way out. White Zetsu laughed. Good job. Dustless nodded slightly, showing a satisfied smile, and then a mysterious smile appeared on his face. Go and inform Robin, let her secretly take a few photos of the Straw Hat Pirates suppressing the CP9, I need them. Dustless, Sama wants the Straw Hat Pirates to be the scapegoat. After following Dustless for so many years, White Zetsu also practiced his agile thinking ability and understood his intentions. This is a must. The CP9 was inexplicably destroyed, and someone must be the scapegoat, otherwise, sooner or later, they will suspect me. The Straw Hat Pirates are the best candidates for the scapegoat. Dustless said without concealing anything. They don't even know who the enemy is, and the CP9 was inexplicably destroyed. There is no doubt that the world government will definitely send someone to investigate, and it is only a matter of time before they find out who is behind this. Dustless will also surface, and for this kind of thing, Straw Hat Luffy is the most suitable scapegoat. Boom boom boom. About half an hour later, a violent vibration came from the tunnel ahead. Dustless frowned slightly as he could clearly feel the vibration under his feet. This level of battle. It doesn't seem like a battle between admirals, it seems to be beyond the level of vice admirals. Interesting. Dustless's handsome face showed a smile, and he couldn't help but speed up his pace. Judging from the scale of the battle and the fluctuations, it is obviously at the level of a quasi-admiral. Whether it is Luffy or Lucci, or anyone else, they haven't reached this level, so it might be someone else. At the same time, Marine Headquarters battleships also arrived at Eni's lobby, and a huge group of 5 vice admirals began to ruthlessly bombard the entire island. Marine Headquarters is very close to Eni's lobby, it only takes half an hour. Countless shells bombarded the island, tearing the ground into pieces, all the buildings collapsed, and the fire was monstrous. In just a few minutes, the blazing flames engulfed the entire island. The miserable scene was no different from the end of the world, and the people of Eni's lobby were screaming. Chapter 795. The further he went, the clearer the vibrations from the depths of the dark corridor became, and even the entire tunnel trembled with his rhythm. Kakaka, with the loud noise, the tunnel was filled with the sound of water flowing, and the momentum was uncontrollable as it rapidly expanded and extended. The incomparably long corridor was instantly eroded and occupied. The mighty water flow oppressed Dustless. Did the cannon blast break the tunnel? Dustless's eyes narrowed as he secretly guessed. These tunnels are buried deep underground and can only be destroyed by the intensive bombardment of the Demon Slayer Order. But it doesn't matter, Those ability users will die if they touch the sea. It's not worth my concern. The devil fruit is afraid of the sea. This is a well-known weakness. Now that the entire tunnel is annihilated by the sea, it means that all creatures in the tunnel will be destroyed. There was a large spacious area with a large number of goods piled up around it. The things loaded were ammunition supplies. The Straw Hats and CP9 were having a fierce confrontation here. Get out of my way, Frankie is behind you in the tunnel, don't block the way. Luffy glared, and his body was boiling. His whole body was dark red, and all aspects of his body were doubled, especially his strength. The scars on Lucci's body were caused by him. Luffy. It's not good, did you hear the vibration just now? Zoro approached Luffy and looked at Kaku who was confronting him. His clothes were soaked with scarlet blood, and Zoro's body was covered with visible wounds. Yes, we can't stay in this place, retreat quickly, or we will be submerged by the sea. One of the three main forces of the Straw Hats, Chef Sanji said. The Straw Hats were obviously at a disadvantage and were suppressed by all the members of the CP9. But Frankie is still in their hands. Clenching his fists, Luffy said unwillingly, they should be worried, they are all ability users, and they will be finished if they are submerged in the sea. Boom boom boom, hearing this, the members of the CP9 frowned. Lucci was about to speak when the iron door behind them was suddenly broken by a powerful force, and a big man wearing only underpants appeared. Frankie. Everyone looked at the oddly dressed man and instantly recognized that this was Frankie's true body. In the entire world, he was the only one who dressed so strangely. Iceberg sent you. Forget it, it's not important anymore. Let's run for our lives. The moment he finished speaking, Frankie sped towards the other end of the tunnel. In just a few seconds, Frankie merged into the darkness and completely disappeared. Little ones, retreat. Leave this island immediately. Luffy shouted and ran towards the place where Frankie disappeared. The purpose of the Straw Hat Pirates was to rescue Frankie after receiving Mr. Iceberg's request. Frankie's sudden appearance was a bit sudden, but there was no doubt that this was his main body. Frankie. Didn't he go to the Marine headquarters with Spandam? One of the CP9 members, Kaku, was puzzled. The CP9 members frowned. Frankie was stronger than Spandam, but his body was tied with chains, so he couldn't hurt or threaten Spandam. Spandam. He's already been killed. From now on, you're free. There was a gust of wind behind them. The CP9 members were stunned. They subconsciously turned around and looked at the figure in the dark. They were secretly on guard. Louis South, Saint. After a while, Dustless came out of the darkness, and his smiling face was exposed to the light. All the members of the CP9, including Lucci and others, were stunned. Officer Spandam was killed. Califa, who recovered from her shock, immediately pursed her lips and smiled elegantly. That eyesore is finally dead. That kind of person is even more evil than pirates. These words made the CP9 members nod. That guy was too annoying. Not to mention helping them, even if he didn't help them, it would be a blessing. What a big cat, it can even fight. Sure enough, there are all kinds of strange things in this world. Dustless exclaimed as his eyes fell on the big cat in a black suit. Not long after his voice fell, a white pigeon landed on the big yellow cat. Dustless was embarrassed and immediately scratched his head. It turned out to be Lucci. Sorry, Spandam was killed by Frankie. He shouldn't have the ability to kill him. I personally tied him up. Kaku in his giraffe form expressed his doubts. Everyone looked straight at Lucci. He was the backbone of the CP9. Why did you kill him? With his hands in his pockets, Lucci asked with a blank face. His voice was close to a machine, and there was no emotional fluctuation in it. As a Marine Admiral, I have no obligation to report to you. Dustless indifferently refused. Different from before, he changed his aura and smiled like a spring breeze. That guy is dead. Whatever you choose in the future, I don't mind taking you in. Chapter 796. Wu-Chen refused indifferently. Different from before, his aura changed, and he smiled like a spring breeze. That guy is dead. How do you choose in the future? I don't mind taking you in. The faces of the CP9 members flashed with displeasure. Dustless actually said in front of them that he killed their boss. This is a slap in their face and contempt. Although Spandam is a well-known waste, despicable and shameless, he is even more evil than some pirates, but he is still the highest officer of the CP9. If he is killed, they won't be able to answer to the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. The CP9 is an espionage agency of the world government and has nothing to do with the Marine. It seems that what you just said is true. You killed him to get Pluton's blueprint. Lucci remembered the broadcast before and was full of vigilance. What will happen if I don't agree? Will you kill me? Then only death awaits. Wu Chen's face changed immediately, and his whole body emitted an oppressive aura. Are you threatening us? Kaku and the others said in a low voice. If it wasn't for Dustless's identity as a Marine Admiral, they would have already started fighting. It has always been the CP9 who threatened others. It was the first time they met Dustless. In order to leak the news of Pluton's blueprint, he intends to destroy us. Lucci understood Dustless's intention and said with a cautious expression. The Marines and the Straw Hat Pirates outside should be your targets. That's for sure. Anyone who knows that I have Pluton's blueprint must die. If it wasn't for your strength, you would have died on the spot. Dustless smiled and didn't hide anything. There was no need to lie to them. As for the group of Marines and pirates outside, the Demon Slayer order is enough to destroy them. The Straw Hat Pirates will be the scapegoats. That's why we're the only ones left. As long as we refuse your conditions, we'll be obliterated, Caliphus said with uncertainty. Not bad. I like smart women. I like that you won't do things that bring about your own destruction. Dustless nodded gently and gave her a look of appreciation. Dustless was also ready to kill them. The CP9 was the ultimate weapon trained by the government for many years, and their loyalty to the world government was deeply rooted when they were young. The CP9 is ordered to carry out the dark justice. If saving 1,000 people requires the sacrifice of 100 people, the CP9 will not hesitate to obliterate those 1,000 people. This is their cold-bloodedness. Heaven or hell, which will you choose? Dustless asked in the end, his words filled with killing intent. Isn't that obvious? Of course, I won't lower my head to you, an evil force. The CP9 is the government spy agency, betraying the Gorosei is impossible. Gabra, one of the CP9 members, shouted. From the moment they joined the organization, they were ready to die. Now, it's impossible for them to be Dustless's dogs in order to survive. You can't wait to die. Dustless, who had expected this, sneered again and again. Although Lucci and the others didn't speak, they must have said the same thing. They are loyal to the world government and are not afraid of death. Sorrow. Jabra's body suddenly turned into a shadow, and a gust of wind swept through the air, and then he appeared at the back of Dustless's head. Sure gone. The muscles at the front of his fingers tightened, and the power was strengthened to the point that it could easily penetrate a human's body. Go to hell. Jabra shouted, and immediately his thumb mercilessly pierced toward Dustless. The target was his head. This move was extremely cruel, and he intended to kill Dustless with one blow. You want to kill me? You should go home and train for 100 years. Dustless turned his head and looked at Jabra with disdain, and said sarcastically. Hearing this, Jabra became angry and the strength in his hand increased by 3 points. Caw caw caw, the crisp sound of bones breaking sounded out of thin air. The CP9 members thought that Dustless's blood was splashed on the spot, but they didn't expect him to stand still. Instead, Jabra behind him was full of pain. His fingers were obviously distorted and completely destroyed. What the hell is this move? Tekai. It doesn't seem to have this level of hardness. Jabra clearly used it on his head. How did Jabra's hand break? The CP9 members were stunned and petrified on the spot. If I'm not wrong, this should be armament hockey. Its defensive power is far stronger than Tekai. I heard that it can also attack Logia ability users. Lucci's eyes lit up. This was also what he heard, and he didn't know the specifics. Lightspeed kick. His body jumped up, and his leg instantly eroded Jabra's body. Bang bang bang. The sealed wall was pierced through, and Gabriel was trapped within. His entire body was in a charred state, turning into a pile of charred meat paste. His heart had completely stopped beating, and his motionless appearance showed that he had completely died. This is the strength of a Marine Admiral. He can easily kill a CP9 with a single move. The two of them were on completely different levels. The difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. It was like a powerless child encountering an adult with infinite strength. It would be destroyed with a flick of a finger. Chapter 797. This is the strength of a Marine Admiral. He can easily kill the CP9 with a single move. The two of them were on completely different levels. The difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. It was like a powerless child encountering an adult with infinite strength. It would be destroyed with a flick of a finger. Before I change my mind, come at me. I will give you a chance to bloom before I obliterate you. It's not fair to kill you directly. Wu-Chen hooked his finger and said provocatively. Lucci and the others looked at each other and immediately swarmed up without hesitation. They can deal with the Straw Hat Pirates alone, but now the opponent is a Marine Admiral, they can only gang up on him. Do you think you can change the outcome of defeat? Like a child who likes to dream. He gathered a large amount of high-density photons with one hand and gathered them into a strong, dazzling light. If one looked at it, they would feel the sharp edge that was like a blade on one's back. Yasukani no Magatama. The flashes of light rained down from the sky. The CP9 members were bathed in endless light as they tried their best to avoid it. Pucci. Although they avoided a large number of flashes of light, it was inevitable that some of them slipped through the net. Their bodies were inevitably pierced and there were thumb-sized burn marks. And as time went by, more and more wounds appeared. About 10 seconds later, the large warehouse that was stained with gold returned to normal, and the light bullets shot by Dustless were annihilated one after another. Lucci, Kaku, Khalifa, and others were fine. They are all outstanding existences in the CP9, so they were spared, but their bodies also have clear burn holes. It would be impossible for him to escape unscathed from the concentrated attacks just now. Only Khalifa and Blueno were safe. The latter escaped the destruction of the Yasukani no Magatama because of the particularity of the fruit. As for Khalifa, do you think I'm great? You don't want to have holes all over your body, right? Looking at Khalifa with a smile, Dustless had an expression that said, "You should be thanking me." As for the other members of the CP9, without exception, they all fell in a pool of blood. The dense Yasukani no Magatama penetrated their bodies. They died one after another. Their expressions were full of fear. They had suffered great pain before they died. Even Lucci, who killed countless people, was slightly pale. Sorrow. His body lost its texture and disappeared without a trace. Six King's Spear. As if he suddenly emerged from the void, Lucci condensed a majestic force in his hands and directly smashed towards Dustless's back. The strong impact produced by his hands made the whole body tremble. Boom, boom, boom. The hard floor was easily penetrated, and a big hole appeared. Lucci narrowed his eyes and tried to find Dustless in the deep hole. When the smoke dispersed, there was no one left in the desolated pit. With your current level of cultivation, it will be difficult for you to even touch my body. Fighting against me will only bring about your own destruction. The photons condensed and retracted, transforming into Dustless. I don't need to tell you. You should know that pure physical attacks are useless against nature-type abilities. From the start of this battle, you were destined to lose. To touch the body of a Logia user, you need armament hockey. CP9 members don't understand it at present, and some of them may not even know what armament hockey is. Renkyaku. Kaku, in his giraffe form, raised his foot and made a long and narrow crack on the ground. A group of problem brats. It seems that you don't understand human language. Dustless's expression gradually became gloomy, and he also gave up the last heart in his heart. The world government had brainwashed them many years ago, and the chance of them turning back is 0. This is the end of the small skirmishes. The hostility in his body rose, and his momentum continued to rise. Even because of too much oppression, the particles on the ground kept jumping back and forth. Who needs your small fight? Behind Dustless, the space suddenly opened, and a figure appeared from inside. It was Blueno. As a door fruit user, his ability is quite strange. You don't know how to live. Observation hockey spread out, and everything around him couldn't escape Dustless's perception. The moment Blueno appeared, Dustless clearly perceived his existence. You want to shorten the gap between realms with your devil fruit ability. This kind of simple idea is just deceiving yourself. Leisurely looking back, the light in his hand whistled out. Laser. As Dustless's voice fell, the light beam erupted. It happened so suddenly that Bruno, who was completely unaware, was directly hit. There was a scorched hole visible to the naked eye between his eyebrows on his forehead. It ran through his whole head, and he immediately fell to the ground. After struggling for a while, he completely lost consciousness. Next, you guys, Lucci, Kaku, and Khalifa. Dustless's eyes looked at the remaining 3 people, and his eyes flashed a bloody light. The murderous look made it difficult for them to breathe, and the huge sense of oppression made it difficult for them to breathe. You two, hurry up and leave. I'll hold him off. Taking a step forward, Lucci's eyes glowed with awe-inspiring luster. His firm tone carried a hint of desperation. Although Lucci was usually indifferent and unreasonable, in fact, he still valued his companions. Chapter 798. Taking a step forward, Lucci's eyes glowed with awe-inspiring luster. His firm tone carried a hint of desperation. Although Lucci was usually indifferent and unreasonable, he still valued his companions. Just you. I don't know where your confidence comes from. Hearing this, Wuchen looked at Lucci contemptuously. With a lazy smile on his face, he stretched and yawned casually. Then, he found a place to sit down. Although this series of actions was full of flaws, no one dared to make a move. I'm different from Blueno and the others. Lucci clenched his hand into a fist and said firmly. Lucci is useless, we can't escape. Kaku said in a deep voice, and his tone also revealed the meaning of death. Hearing this, Lucci raised his eyebrows slightly, and his eyes flashed with anger. He was about to scold them, but Dustless's voice sounded in advance. There's no need to be so sad, as long as you are willing to bow your head. Whoosh! Dustless's voice didn't fall, and a beautiful leg swept across. Little girl, you are young, but your temper is not small. Your boss hasn't made a move yet, and you can't wait to come to the door. Lightly lifting his hand to catch the beautiful leg that was sweeping towards him, Wu Chen smiled leisurely and said, "You'd better watch obediently. Don't make a move so easily, or else you'll be exposed." Following Dustless's line of sight, what came into view was the most mysterious part of the woman. It turned out to be purple. Worthy of being the only woman in the CP9, her taste is heavy. Dustless smirked, and secretly slandered her in his heart. "You bastard! I will kill you." Caliph's face was red, and she naturally understood the meaning of Dustless's words. Her face flashed with a strong killing intent, and she tried to retract her leg that was caught by Dustless to avoid being seen by this bastard. His strength is so strong. Is this the strength of the Marine's highest combat power? Caliph's face was cloudy, and she was shocked. She used everything she had, but she could not move Dustless. The hand that grabbed Caliph's leg did not move. His expression was calm as if nothing had happened. "Renkyaku." The silver-white light came straight at Dustless. It was as sharp as the slash from the sword and saber. The flowing wind and waves were cut in half. It looked as if it was going to devour and annihilate Dustless. "I've told you before, this kind of random attack is useless against me." She raised her hand, and her small white hand was instantly corroded by the black color. The moment her slash came into contact with Dustless, her small black hand flung out, and the pale silver light trembled violently. Caw caw caw. The weak and powerless hand was filled with terrifying strength, and the huge silver light was instantly shattered. The exploding silver light scattered in all directions, rubbing a deep hole in the ground. "You guys are too inexperienced." Dustless glanced at Kaku and said flatly. It was as if he had done something insignificant, and his tone was unusually calm. Strange ripples splashed in the air, spreading out like water ripples. Wu Chen raised his head subconsciously. Lucci stepped on the air and rose rapidly, easily climbing into the air, and then his body strangely stayed in the void for a moment, and countless flashes rushed down. "Is this the Jeppo?" "Good steps." Nodding sincerely, Dustless ignored the existence of the laws of physics. His body strangely floated in the air, and his speed was extremely fast. In just a moment, he came to Lucci's side. "A cat wants to roam the sky, the ground is your home." Lucci did not speak, but he felt a strong blow on his back. His face changed dramatically, and the piercing pain spread all over his body, and his internal organs trembled violently. Boom boom boom, a black shadow fell from the sky, and the whole ground trembled violently. Lucci lay motionless in it, and the scarlet blood stains on the corner of his mouth were clearly visible. "It's over." Landing beside Lucci, Dustless condensed a high-density light at his fingertips. "Sure gone." Kaku swept to Dustless's side like a ghost, and his strong and powerful thumb pierced straight towards Dustless's eyes. Armament hockey can defend the body, but it can't defend the eyes. Naive. With a dazzling flash, Kaku easily penetrated Dustless's body. Elementalization again. Tricky ability. Although Dustless's eyes were pierced, he was safe and sound. Elementalization can easily avoid physical attacks. It's impossible to use this kind of physical attack to hurt Dustless. It's difficult to even touch his body. Lightspeed kick. The right foot full of flashes rose from the ground and swept straight towards Kaku's head. Tekai. Kaku's back was cold, and he smelled the smell of death. At such a close distance, there was no time to escape. He could only increase his hardness without limit. Boom! After only a moment of stalemate, Tekai couldn't withstand the power of the lightspeed kick. Kaku's skull was obviously dented, and he was easily hit in the head, and he lost consciousness. Boom boom boom, the whole warehouse shook, and a huge cloud of smoke and dust was raised. Inside the closed warehouse, the dazzling sunlight shone in. Kaku's body smashed the thick wall, and a huge hole was opened. The sunlight slipped in through the hole. Don't forget that there is still me. Califa attacked from behind, and her beautiful leg swung again. Dustless leisurely looked back, his eyes twitched and his three-tomo rotated, stirring up waves of ripples. Then Califa lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Chapter 799. In less than a minute, all the CP9 members were crushed by the overwhelming strength of Wu Qin. They had no power to fight back. In the face of absolute strength, any fruit and all kinds of abilities are useless and will only become a laughingstock. Kaku fell to the ground in a bloody mess. He was covered in blood and wounds all over his body. His breathing had stopped, and his heart and pulse had stopped beating. This meant that he had fallen. Bastard, why does justice have to lose to people like you who commit crimes? Lucci gritted his teeth and roared unwillingly. He lost his usual calmness. Almost all of his companions were killed. The blow to him was no less than 5 thunders. Although he was cold and ruthless, he cherished these companions who fought with him in the past. As the saying goes, justice is cheap and worthless. Dustless took advantage of the situation to attack Lucci's psychological defense. As a citizen of Tianlong, my status is obviously higher than the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, but you chose to be loyal to them. It's unwise. If you are willing to give up the darkness, I don't mind letting you go, but it's too late. Dustless said softly. Farewell. Rob Lucci. A dazzling flash condensed on the tip of his foot. Lucci, who was seriously injured, couldn't avoid it. He could only watch the flash of destruction engulf and annihilate him. Boom. Boom. Boom, the super-large fireball rose into the air, and the hot temperature melted the steel building. The large warehouse suddenly disappeared, and the ground was scorched black. The surrounding buildings were turned into ashes, and the scorching sun shot down from the sky. Boom. Boom. Boom, the dense roar of artillery shells covered the vibration caused by Dustless. Staring at the giant flame mushroom in the distance, the Marine Vice Admirals who launched the Demon Slayer order thought that it hit the warehouse where the artillery shells were stored. Looking around, the fire in Eni's lobby was monstrous. The whole island was burning with monstrous flames. It was dead silent, like a purgatory on Earth. Charred corpses could be seen everywhere. The boundless fire destroyed the entire island. As for her, she's a good witness. Staring at the unconscious Califa, Dustless rolled his eyes and used Kamui to temporarily suck her into another dimension. With Dustless's one-sided words, it is impossible to cover the coffin. If Califa can testify from the side and push all the blame to the Straw Hat Pirates, the Straw Hat Pirates will succeed. Caw caw caw. A white figure emerged from the scorched ground, revealing a brand new layer of soil. Lord Dustless, I've brought it. White Zetsu handed the photo in his hand to Dustless. It was the moment when the Straw Hat suppressed the CP9. Robin secretly took the photo and gave it to White Zetsu. Dustless nodded and spread out his perception. The changes in Eni's lobby were clearly visible to him. Not even the slightest movement could escape his eyes. The entire Eni's lobby was dead silent, there was nothing except for the monstrous fire. 5 days later, the Marine headquarters was filled with Marlin. Bang! The desk piled with thick documents suddenly trembled, and immediately, there was an angry shout. A bunch of idiots, Pluton's blueprint is gone, and even that Rob Lucci was killed. Isn't he the strongest killing weapon of the CP9? In the end, they didn't even figure out who the enemy was. Sengoku was so depressed that he vomited blood. It doesn't matter if he is killed. There is always someone stronger. This is also a helpless thing. But the most unacceptable thing is that almost all the members were killed, and they didn't even know who the enemy was. We don't have to worry about this, the Gorosei will send someone to investigate, it's only a matter of time before they find out. Akiji comforted Sengoku, indicating that there is no need to worry. It's not necessary, I know who did it. An unexpected voice broke the oppressive atmosphere, causing everyone to be startled and look towards the source of the voice in unison. Everyone's eyes were focused on Dustless. You know. Sengoku asked expectantly. Who did it? That Rob Lucci isn't weak. Akiji was deeply curious. He had seen Rob Lucci before and knew how strong he was. Dustless smiled and immediately said, the Straw Hat Pirates did it. As Dustless's voice fell, the scene was dead silent. Everyone was dumbfounded. The captain of the Straw Hat Pirates, Straw Hat Luffy, is only at the level of 100 million berries. It's absolutely impossible for him to kill Rob Lucci. Impossible, the Straw Hat Pirates are not Lucci's opponents. I have fought with them before. Akiji frowned and was the first to stand up and question Dustless. Kizaru and Akainu were the same, and even Sengoku was skeptical. After the Enies lobby was destroyed by the Demon Slayer Order, I went to the island and met the only survivor, Califa of the CP9. I rescued her from the fire and found these photos on her body. After that, Dustless took out the photos that Robin secretly took. It recorded the moment when the Straw Hat Pirates crushed the CP9. Especially when the Straw Hat Pirates fought against Lucci. Everyone frowned when they saw the Straw Hat Pirates fighting against Lucci. Califa woke up yesterday, you can ask her. As for Pluton's blueprint, it was burned by Frankie. Dustless said without blushing. He put all the blame on the Straw Hat Pirates and Frankie. Chapter 800. With all the evidence, there is no doubt that the people who destroyed Enies lobby are the Straw Hat Pirates. Sengoku's eyes were gloomy, the veins on his forehead were clearly visible, his hands were trembling slightly, and the cracks in the middle of the photo were clearly visible. In the unseen world, Dustless seemed to have heard the sound of crows cawing. The destruction of Enies lobby isn't a trivial matter. Someone must stand up and take full responsibility. Kizaru leisurely crossed his legs and said while blowing smoke. If it wasn't for that idiot Spandam, none of this would have happened. Akainu's hoarse voice was full of anger. Dustless was expressionless and chose to be silent. The people who knew that he got the Pluton design, except for the Straw Hat Pirates who were about to take the blame, were all killed. Naturally, he could rest easy. It seems that there will be a good show to watch. The corner of his eyes quietly looked at Akiji. Akainu attacked him with innuendo. If Akiji didn't give the golden den mushi to Spandam, none of this would have happened, and Akiji would be the one to bear the brunt of the responsibility. The contradiction between Akiji and Akainu was also clear in the marine, and everyone knew it. I'm afraid the one with the most advantage is this old guy. Only Kizaru is sitting on the fishing platform. This old guy is playing beautifully. Taking a step back in order to advance is also a means of self-protection. Wu Chen's gaze turned and fell on Borsellino. Spandam. Forget it, he has already passed away, there is no need to put the blame on him. Sengoku waved his hand, and a haze flashed in his eyes. He immediately stared at the silent Garp, and after a moment of hesitation, the hesitation in his eyes finally turned into determination. The one who destroyed the CP9 is the Straw Hat Pirates, and all the blame will be borne by them. Sengoku finally chose to put all the blame on the Straw Hat Pirates and said righteously, if they didn't break into Enies lobby at all costs, none of this would have happened. The main culprit is the Straw Hat Pirates. Of course, that idiot Spandam can't stay out of it. Raise the bounty of the Straw Hat Pirates. Captain Straw Hat Luffy's bounty has been raised from 100 million to 300 million berries. As for the other crew members, they have also been increased. Sengoku's voice was heavy. How long has it been since the last Alabasta? Luffy's strength was enough to defeat Rob Lucci, so Sengoku was worried. Wait, this isn't over yet. A hoarse voice spread out, his tone filled with dissatisfaction. Sakazuki, what do you think is wrong? Sengoku asked with a blank face. Kazan can't escape responsibility for this. If he hadn't given the golden den mushi to that idiot Spandam, none of this would have happened. This is a dereliction of duty. Akainu said generously. As an iron-blooded marine general, he can't rub sand in his eyes. Meritorious deeds will be rewarded, and mistakes will be punished. This has never changed since ancient times. Why is Akiji so special? Absolutely not. This guy even thought about the blame, looking at Akainu speechlessly. Dustless could only shake his head. Akainu and Akiji really can't cooperate together. The two of them have completely opposite personalities. Akainu is known for being iron-blooded and cold. In order to achieve his goal, he will sacrifice anyone at will. Akiji's personality was relatively lazy, and he would stop when it was necessary. Therefore, the two of them are destined to be incompatible. This contradiction has been accumulating for more than 10 years, and once it breaks out, it will be irreversible. Kazan didn't do anything wrong. Nico, Robin and Frankie are both in Eni's lobby. It's right to take precautions in advance. Sengoku argued for Akiji. It's all that idiot Spandam's fault. If he hadn't rashly launched the Demon Slayer order, none of this would have happened. Taking a deep breath, Sengoku stabilized his anxious heart. All in all, this matter will be pushed to the Straw Hat Pirates, and all the blame will be borne by them. But, Akainu's face froze. Listening to Sengoku's tone, it was obvious that he was determined to protect Akiji. No buts, this matter ends here, don't mention it again in the future. Sengoku's tone this time was full of warning. Obviously, this Envoy Island incident was going to end in a hasty manner. Everything will be pushed to Straw Hat Luffy. Anyway, they were the ones who killed the CP9, and Califo was the witness. Idiot, glancing at Akainu with pity, Dustless had a little more sympathy for this guy. In this matter, it was obvious that Sengoku was covering up for Akiji. As Akainu said, Akiji was guilty of dereliction of duty. Without finding out what kind of person Spandam was, he gave him the right to launch the order. This in itself was a big crime of not knowing how to use people. However, Sengoku was helpless. It's not that he didn't want to pursue this matter, but if he did, Akiji would be suspended. Eni's lobby was destroyed for the first time in 800 years, and it was in the hands of their own people. This scandal is enough to deal a fatal blow to the prestige of the Marine. At present, the Marine can't do without Akiji. The deterrence of an admiral can maintain the current world structure. Suddenly, an admiral is inexplicably removed, and the current world structure may change. It seems that the smartest one is still Kizaru. Akainu and Akiji are fighting, and the only one who has the most advantage is Kizaru. Chapter 801. Every time there is such a dispute, the one who reaps the benefits is Kizaru. Living in the middle, he isn't affected by anyone, and he overlooks the development of the situation from his own point of view. Akiji is the successor of Sengoku. Looking at the disappointed and slightly decadent Akainu, Dustless knew the inside story. In the future, Sengoku intends to let Akiji take over as the next Marine Fleet Admiral, so naturally, it's impossible to damage his prestige. Akainu's face was complicated, and he couldn't hide the thousands of emotions in his heart. He's not an idiot. In front of Sengoku, Aokiji is indeed more popular than him. A military horse wholeheartedly loyal to the Marine, in exchange for the current situation. Akainu's shining eyes couldn't help but dim, and he silently sat back in his original position, no longer wasting his breath. By the way, is Pluton's blueprint really destroyed by that guy named Frankie? Sengoku was worried about Pluton's blueprint. After all, it's an ancient weapon, and controlling it means that it's likely to control the dominance of this era. In other words, whoever owns an ancient weapon is the master of this world. Of course, this is what Caliphus CP9 saw with her own eyes. Dustless vowed, and the firmness in his words made people involuntarily convinced. Sengoku gently nodded, and his eyes immediately became cold. What about the Straw Hats? What about their movements? They smashed Eni's lobby, and they want to retreat safely. Dream on. I guess they should be returning to Water 7. Their ship is broken, and if they want to continue their journey, they must find a suitable ship for them to travel around the world. Dustless guessed, and at the same time, he also understood Sengoku's intention, which is nothing more than taking the opportunity to destroy the Straw Hats. We don't need to do it ourselves. Their next stop should be the island standing in the Magic Triangle, which is Moria's territory. I should personally go and destroy Straw Hat Luffy. That kid is a rat that can't be killed, and it's difficult to poison him without using a strong rat poison. Akainu, who couldn't hold back his temper, recommended himself. He always had a deep hatred for pirates, especially the more potential a pirate had, the more he wanted to destroy them. Red Hair Shanks is the best example. Back then, he was just a trainee crew member of Roger's Pirates. Now, he has become the Yonko, for emperors, of the New World. Dustless couldn't help but smile when he heard this. He stared at Akainu mockingly. He didn't expect him to have a funny attribute. That's not necessary. Without thinking about it, Sengoku directly refused Akainu. If he sent him, maybe the target of the massacre would be the ordinary civilians of Water 7. Akainu would do such a crazy thing. The Ohara incident was like this. Ordinary civilians who had nothing to do with it were killed by Akainu. Many people in Water 7 who helped the Straw Hat Pirates fight against the government were also killed by him. Give it to Gecko Moria, he should be able to deal with the Straw Hat Pirates. Waving his hand, he motioned Akainu to sit down. Sengoku made the best decision. There was no need to continue to lose soldiers. The existence of Shichibukai was to contain pirates. Suppressing pirates with pirates, this is the meaning of the existence of Shichibukai. But then again, isn't it a bit too much for Moria to agree to deal with Whitebeard? Kizaru, who was silent, said. Moria's condition was Whitebeard's body after he was killed. Sengoku's face stiffened when he heard this. At least in Dustless's eyes, he showed an annoyed expression, as if he had suffered a lot, and his spirit was sluggish. At this moment, he had a headache. This is raising a tiger. If we give him Whitebeard's body, he might do something out of line. Kizaru said with worry. Shichibukai were ambitious people. Aokiji and Akainu were silent, and Dustless was not interested in this kind of thing, so it became Kizaru's stage in an instant. The solution to this cancer is actually very simple. After the war with Whitebeard is over, kill him directly. Dustless's eyes flashed coldly, and he immediately said casually. Anyway, this kind of thing is often done by Sengoku, and it's just a common thing for Marines. Hearing this, Sengoku looked at Dustless with a complaining look. This guy obviously scolded him. Whitebeard's body must not be given to Gecko Moria. If he can't, I think there are a lot of pirates in the New World who are qualified to be Shichibukai, and there should be a lot of big pirates who want to join Shichibukai. Time passed, and the dawn of dawn drove out the cold darkness. The distance gradually rose, and the world greeted the morning sun as usual. This time, it was obviously different from the past. While welcoming the bright sun at dawn, it was accompanied by earth-shattering news that shook the world. There is no such thing as an airtight wall in the world, and paper can't wrap fire. The news that the CP9 was destroyed, and Eni's lobby became a hell on earth. So the world was once again in the whirlpool of public opinion. With this storm, Straw Hat Luffy once again became famous all over the world. Not only Luffy, but the entire Straw Hat Pirates. And Dustless, the one who really destroyed the CP9, was leisurely drinking tea at this moment. Chapter 802. There is no doubt that Dustless's series of secret plans easily deceived the Marine's eyes and ears. With all the evidence and witnesses, it's difficult to deny Dustless's idea. There's no way around it, it's the truth. Garp, that guy left Marlindo. Where did he go? In the Admiral's office, Dustless leisurely faced the sun with a serene look. Behind him stood a slender figure, it was CP9's Califa. At this moment, Califa was dressed in black, her slender white legs were exposed, she was dressed as a secretary in the past. Yes, he left Marlindo, his specific whereabouts are unknown. Califa said expressionlessly. Her tone was like a machine, and her voice was filled with indifference. She was like an iceberg that had been frozen for thousands of years. Her whole body was filled with unprecedented coldness and deathly stillness. Unknown. You're not qualified to be a secretary. Dustless said with a straight face. He worked hard to keep Califa by his side to guard against Sengoku and others. These people are all black-hearted tigers, if Califa revealed the truth, it would not be worth it. That's why Dustless pulled her to be a secretary. I'll have a headache if you keep a straight face like this. Dustless looked at Califa helplessly, his face immediately swept with a strange smile. You're always so indifferent, it's difficult for you to be a secretary. I'm not your secretary, I'll definitely kill you if I have the opportunity, so you'd better kill me now, otherwise, you'll be torn to pieces. Califa's whole body exploded, the temperature in the room dropped to the freezing point, filled with killing intent. Ah! You're really cold. Dustless pretended to be afraid, but his eyes were full of ridicule and ridicule. In the world I lived in before, there was such a saying. Dustless touched his chin, stared at Califa and said with a smile on his face, if there's something, the secretary will do it, if there's nothing, the secretary will do it. Califa frowned slightly, her beautiful eyes flashed with some doubts, apparently she didn't realize what he meant. If there's something, the secretary will do it. If there's nothing, do the secretary. After reading it a few times, Califa's expression suddenly froze as understanding flashed through her mind. Her pretty face flushed red as if blood was about to drip out. Even an idiot would understand what he meant. Finger spear. Her white jade fingers were strengthened infinitely, revealing a bullet-like sharpness. She immediately stabbed towards Dustless' head. Just as she was about to pierce through his head, Dustless spoke up to stop Califa's actions. You also know my ability. The one who doesn't know how to be domineering is you. No matter how you attack me, it won't help. These words made Califa's body stiffen. Her eyes flickered as she lowered her head, seemingly thinking of a countermeasure. Pay attention to your identity, you are a Marine Admiral, not a rogue. Holding a black notebook in her arms, Califa said coldly. Dustless's secretary, Califa was actually waiting for an opportunity to take revenge on Dustless. Identity. Since you know that I am a Marine Admiral, don't do something stupid. Don't forget, while I am a Marine Admiral, I also have another identity. Taking a deep look at Califa, Dustless said meaningfully. He deliberately pulled off his coat, revealing a unique outfit with gold rims. Looking closely, the unique logo was clearly visible. Seeing this, Caliph's face was pale with fear. In addition to being a marine admiral, Dustless is also a celestial dragon with absolute authority. As you said, I am a marine admiral. But you must also understand the character of a celestial dragon. Even if I do something worse to you, it will be reasonable in everyone's eyes, hee. At the end, Dustless deliberately showed a wretched smile, scaring Califa so much that her face turned pale. She was as weak as a willow branch, she could only let Dustless beat her. Little girl, if I don't teach you a lesson, you won't know who I am. Seeing Califa's timid face, Dustless smirked in his heart. Now you should tell me where that old man Garp went. My body is itchy, and there is a fire in my stomach. If I don't get it out, I may explode and die. It's a headache, I'm struggling to find something to vent. His unscrupulous eyes stared at Califa, the meaning is self-evident. If Califa is perfunctory like before, he will directly punish her. In other words, he will force himself on her. He went to impel down, his purpose should be to see Fire Fist Ace. Califa quickly arrived, her eyes were filled with fear. She has a deep understanding of the nature of a celestial dragon. Celestial dragons are both the creator of this world and the destroyer. No one can defy their authority. Those who provoke a celestial dragon will die. However, Califa is not afraid of death. When she was young, she had already seen through life and death. The only thing that makes her deeply uneasy is Dustless's character that likes to change his face like flipping a book. Just now, he was still indifferent, not sad, not happy, but now this wretched and brutal appearance completely shows the indifference of a celestial dragon. To some extent, this is the truest portrayal of the celestial dragons. They give their power to the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, who are equivalent to secretaries, while they choose to hide in Mariewa and live an extravagant and luxurious life. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.